Before we begin this afternoon, I'd like to welcome in the public gallery Gayleen Gulliver, Marketing, Special Events and Public Relations Manager with the Downtown St. John's. She's visiting us this afternoon for a member statement. Welcome. Also in the public gallery, I'd like to welcome Caden Crocker. Caden is joined by his father and coach, Ian Crocker. They're also being recognized this afternoon for a member statement. Welcome. And welcome everyone else in the galleries. Today we'll hear statements by the honourable members for the districts of Stephenville, Port-au-Port, Exploits, St. John's East Kitivity, and Topsail Paradise. The honourable member for Stephenville, Port-au-Port.
Thank you, Speaker. The multi-talented 14-year-old David Walsh of Stephenville is a young rising star in the music and theatre world. In 2024, David won the Junior Rose Bowl competition at the Corner Brook Rotary Music Festival. Last year, he also won his first Rose Bowl at the Stephenville Rotary Music Festival, and just this past month, he claimed it again 2 years in a row. David has competed nationally for the past 2 years at the Canadian Federation of Music Festivals in both vocal and musical theatre. He earned a Platinum Standard 95 or above in musical theatre and once again has been recommended for nationals in both categories this year. In addition to his solo work, David was part of the Atlantic Boy Choir, performing in England and France. He is also a dedicated student of Nomad Stages Art Studio in Stephenville, where he trains year-round in musical theatre and dance. David's passion, focus, and stage presence continue to earn him recognition and awards. At such a young age, he is already making a name for himself, both locally and nationally, and his journey is just getting started. Congratulations, David. We can't wait to see what you do next.
The Honourable, the member for Exploits.
Thank you, Speaker. Today I would like to recognize and honour a hockey legend from Bishops Falls, Mr. Alex Faulkner. Alex was truly a dynamic hockey player and the first player from our province to play in the NHL in 1962. He played with the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Detroit Red Wings. He also played in the AHL and WHL. Speaker, in 1963, Alex played in the Stanley Cup's finals. He was an outstanding hockey player. He had an outstanding career as an hockey player and was the best from blue line to the net. There was no better hockey player than Alex Faulkner. He was a Hall of Fame athlete and an excellent in other various sports. Alex is also remembered as a very successful businessman in central Newfoundland upon his retirement from hockey. Speaker, I would like for all members of the House of Assembly to join me in remembering Mr. Alex Faulkner and send a sincere condolence to his family and friends. Keep your stick on the ice. Thank you.
Honourable Member St. John's East Kitivity.
Speaker, I stand to acknowledge the great work of the Downtown Safety Coalition, established in 2022 to address complex issues of safety in the downtown core of St. John's. The coalition includes representatives from the George Street Association, City of St. John's, Destination of St. John's, HNL, Music NL, the RNC, and provincial government. They meet regularly to discuss shared experiences, perspectives, and to find solutions to ongoing safety issues. The Coalition's objectives are to increase safety and improve visitors' experience in the downtown core. In the past year, the Coalition hired and deployed a private security patrols in the downtown area. This foot patrol provides support to people visiting and working, including the businesses that operate there. They work in cooperation and consultation with the RNC, but not intended as a replacement for the RNC, rather as additional security in the community. Having this additional security presence on patrol helps deter unlawful behavior while supporting those who might be in need. Finally, they operate as ambassadors for the downtown, welcoming and informing visitors. Speaker, I ask this House to join me in recognizing the Downtown Safety Coalition for their continued impact and success in making the downtown a viable centre of activity for shopper and visitor alike. Thank you.
The Honourable, the member for Topsail Paradise.
Speaker, 13-year-old Caden Crocker, a Taekwondo athlete from Paradise, has been training since he was 3 years old in World Taekwondo. Caden is passionate about his sport, both inside and outside the ring. He assists young athletes, helping out at his club and volunteering at sports-sponsored events. Though he is dedicated to training, putting in 5 sessions per week, he understands the value of a good education. Diligent in his schoolwork, he maintains a GPA of over 90%. Caden sets a positive example not only for the students at Samjay Taekwondo, but to all aspiring Taekwondo athletes in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. This past few years, he has trained hard and demonstrated a fierce determination. In February, his efforts paid off at the 2025 Canadian National Taekwondo Championships in Montreal, where he succeeded in becoming the first Newfoundlander and Labradorian to obtain a spot on Team Canada and represent his country at the Taekwondo Pan American Games that took place this past week in Mexico. It is with great pride that I also congratulate Caden on bringing home the silver medal for Canada. Mr. Speaker, I ask all to join me in congratulating Caden and wish him all the continued success.
Statements by ministers. The Honourable the Minister of Tourism, Culture, Arts and Recreation.
Thank you, Speaker. This week we celebrate National Tourism Week, recognizing the significant role tourism plays in Newfoundland and Labrador. With the theme, Canada Powered by Tourism. This week highlights how vital this industry truly is. Tourism is a key economic driver, contributing over $1.4 billion to our economy, providing employment for thousands of people and creating significant benefits for our communities. Nationally, tourism creates 1 in 10 jobs, infusing the Canadian economy with more than $100 billion in expenditure. Hear, hear. Tourism operators play a critical role in sharing our unique story, culture and heritage, not just with international visitors, but also with Canadian travelers. Their efforts enhance local experiences, support cultural and recreational assets, enriching both the visitor experience and the quality of life for our residents. Thank you to Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador, destination management organizations, the Newfoundland and Labrador Indigenous Tourism Association, and the Newfoundland and Labrador Outfitters Association for their dedication in promoting and supporting tourism throughout our province. Speaker, let us continue to prioritize and support tourism and travel, ensuring that Newfoundland and Labrador remains a top bucket list destination for both Canadian and international visitors. Thank you.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member of Central West Bellevue.
Thank you, Speaker, and I thank the Minister for an advance copy of his statement. Tourism is certainly a key economic driver here in our province of Newfoundland and Labrador, and the tourism operators are the engines to create that over $1 billion in our economy annually. These operators create critical employment opportunities in many of our rural communities where other opportunities may not exist. They ensure that our visitors capture the true, unique culture, heritage, and local experience of this place we all call home. They highlight our physical beauty through our trails, harbors, and bays, and end their day tasting some of our local traditional cuisine. We would like to take this opportunity to thank Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador, our destination management organizations, Newfoundland and Labrador Indigenous Tourism Association, and the Newfoundland and Labrador Outfitters Association for their continued dedication in displaying our tourism potential to the country and the world. Let us continue to be powered by tourism. Thank you, Speaker.
The Honourable the Member for Labrador West.
Thank you, Speaker. I thank the Minister for an advance copy of his statement. I said we recognize how important tourism is. I understand how important tourism is. I sat on Gateway Labrador for years, and I understand the importance of its economy. But unfortunately, there's barriers that prevent all regions from taking advantage of opportunities in this growing industry. That's why I want to express disappointment that in this budget there was no money or anything set aside to work on intra-provincial air travel. Tourists and locals alike cannot benefit across this province if they cannot get around this province. Thank you.
Are there any further statements by ministers? Oral questions. The Honourable the Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, $200 million is bookmarked in interim supply as a contingency fund for the impact of tariffs in this province. Yesterday it was re-announced in the budget. I asked the Minister, can the Minister provide details of the incentives that this fund will be used for?
The Honourable the Deputy Premier, Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much.
That was a great budget.
Thank you. And it was the $200 million has been set aside, as the member opposite knows. We discussed it at length during the interim supply debate. I will say to the member opposite, there's a lot of volatility. You know that every day something new happens on the global stage, and we are monitoring. We're remaining diligent in in understanding what's happening to our economy, what's happening to the global economy, and we'll take measures that are required should we have and when we have impacts on the economy due to these tariffs. I will say that we are guided by the community leaders, union leaders, and business leaders who are telling us some of those impacts. So we'll be guided by them as the time draws near.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Speaker. Part of the opportunity here is to streamline some of our own processes internally. We've been hearing from businesses and chambers of commerce that there are lots of things that could be done now that would help them in developing their businesses and getting them opened sooner and faster. So I think those are the things I'm trying to get at. Where are we to with some of these initiatives when we talk about eliminating barriers? Speaker, yesterday the Minister bragged about a 13% drop in non-urgent MRI wait times in the eastern urban zone. So I asked the Minister, why are we only hearing about improvements in the metro area? Where are the stats for the rest of Newfoundland and Labrador?
The Honourable Minister of Health and Community Services.
Thank you very much, Speaker. That's just part of the success of the investments that we've made. If he wishes to look across the province, then I would suggest we could start with 75,000 people who are now through Patient Connect and rostered with family care teams. There are still more to go. Those people who have registered with Patient Connect but not yet been rostered now have access to virtual care. So I'd use this forum to suggest to anybody who is out there who has not registered yet with Patient Connect and doesn't have a family doctor that it would be a good idea to do so. It would give them access to virtual care while they're waiting. The successes continue.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Speaker, let me talk about the 163,000 people who still do not have access to a primary care provider. And while the stats may be great here in the urban area, they're not great in the rest of rural Newfoundland and Labrador. So let's get that fixed. And let's talk about nurse practitioners. Why are we still paying for nurse practitioners? That wasn't addressed yesterday in the budget. But again, it's about sugarcoating the numbers. This Liberal government has forgotten everyone outside the overpass. Just one mention of Newfoundland and Labrador, rural Newfoundland and Labrador, in the entire budget speech. So I asked the Minister of Rural Economic Development, is this government's plan for rural NL to quietly shut the lights off and walk away?
The Honourable the Deputy Premier, Minister of Finance.
What a misconstruction of a 90 or 70-minute budget speech, Mr. Speaker. Honest to goodness. Did he not listen to the amount of money that we're putting into economic development? We talked about restaurants. Are there no restaurants outside the Avalon Peninsula? I asked the member opposite. We talked about technology yesterday in the budget. There's money for technology. Is there no technology around this province? Of course there is, Mr. Speaker. I would say to the member opposite that he'd go back and read that budget speech, analyze it, and understand that there are significant investments, not only for the Avalon Peninsula, but for every region in this province, because this government supports economic development and growth in all areas of Newfoundland and Labrador.
The Honourable the Leader of the Official Opposition.
I've read the budget. I've read the budget, and when I looked at it, what did it contain for cost of living initiatives? What did it contain when it comes to access to health care? We didn't see anything there. And I've also talked to rural development associations in rural parts of Newfoundland and Labrador who have sent in proposals and haven't even got the respect to get a response back about the things that they're looking for. That's just not good enough right now. Speaker, one officer of the House, the Auditor General, has raised serious findings in an audit of personal care homes in this province. Another officer of the House, the Seniors Advocate, says she isn't surprised by the findings of the Auditor General's recent report. And quote her, families have been pointing out these issues for years. Why is this Liberal government simply saying that this is a communications issue?
Great question.
The Honourable Minister of Health and Community Services.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Unfortunately, the member opposite again kind of misrepresents the statements that have been put out there. Firstly, let me say that there is no acceptable number of serious incidents, none at all. Those that were identified in the AG's report, each of them was dealt with promptly and appropriately, and where appropriate, law enforcement was involved. We have worked over the last 6 years to improve the situation with respect to standards. We have been remiss at publishing them for the public. However, they have been out there for the personal care home operators to see and use, and for NLHS, who are responsible for monitoring and supervising. We put in 17 new FTEs to aid supervision and assessment of patients in personal care homes. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Speaker, it's great to hear the minister stand up. And last week they couldn't decide upon whether or not it was their responsibility or whether it was the health authorities' responsibility. These are things that were actually quoted in the media. The Auditor General states that these issues go back a decade to 2015. So we have the Minister of Municipal Affairs, who was the health minister for most of the past decade. We have two leadership candidates, one who was most recently the Minister of Health and the other who was a Deputy Minister of Health back in 2015. Why are these leadership candidates refusing to speak to this issue, and why has the Liberal government not provided proper oversight for families and seniors for the last decade?
Great question.
The Honourable Minister of Health and Community Services.
Thank you very much, Speaker. We have provided oversight through NLHS. That is their role, that is their mandate to provide oversight. In 2020, we initiated a programme whereby every home would have one announced inspection and one unannounced inspection each month. That has continued through COVID, and you saw the success we had there compared with other jurisdictions in terms of the health and well-being of seniors in personal care homes. That continues. We have added 17 full-time equivalents who are responsible through the NLHS for monitoring and assessing homes, and we'll continue to work on the standards as we get to them, one at a time.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Speaker. The personal care home sector is a valuable part of our healthcare system. We have great operators, we have great staff, and they're providing quality care to our seniors. Speaker, food inspections, school bus inspections, and child care inspections are all published online, yet the personal care homes that care for our seniors and loved ones are not. So I asked the Minister, why aren't these reports made public?
The Honourable Minister of Health and Community Services.
Thank you, Speaker. This is something we are going to do. I said that last week and the week before, and in actual fact, Mr. Lane from the Personal Care Home and Operators Association is on board with that. It is entirely reasonable that these reports of compliance are published, but equally I think it's important to highlight those homes that are compliant. This is not everyone's story, and this is a fact that's been brought to my attention by residents of personal care homes who are worried that somehow their home is being brought into disrepute by these kind of things. The member has raised a good point. The Auditor General's raised it. We acknowledge it, and we're going to do it.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Thank you, Speaker. They should be made public. And recommendations made in 2015, we shouldn't be 10 years later still talking about the same recommendations with the same minister in charge. Speaker, the President of the Nurses Union has responded to the budget by saying, government, and I quote, missed the mark. What in this budget specifically addresses the verbal and physical abuse nurses continue to face on the job?
The Honourable Minister of Health and Community Services.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I was somewhat surprised at the President's remarks, bearing in mind that she had been briefed, as all of the stakeholders had, on the contents of the budget, that she actually omitted a lot of the things that we were talking about in the budget. There is money there for internationally educated nurses. She said there wasn't. There's $2.3 million. She said that we were not interested in recruitment and retention. We have 760 new RNs in this province. The vacancy rate in RNs has gone from 750 18 months ago to 300. We have 246 student nurses graduating this year. 222 of them have been offered and accepted full-time employment.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Thank you, Speaker. And once again, the architect of our healthcare crisis is in another alternate universe, because everyone else are wrong once again, and he's right. It's what we heard. We've listened to this for a decade. Speaker, the President also noted and this has been confirmed by nursing students, that they are still not being offered full-time permanent positions. Meanwhile, provinces like Nova Scotia are. When is the minister going to stop relying on temporary casual contracts?
The Honourable Minister of Health and Community Services.
I think the member opposite missed the last part of my last comment. Every nurse has been offered a permanent post. We have 222 who have accepted full-time employment out of 246. That's over 90%. We're working on the other 10.
The Honourable the Opposition House Leader.
Thank you, Speaker. And tell the minister I heard quite enough. I think we've all heard quite enough over the last decade with this minister. Speaker, while the Liberals celebrate recruitment efforts, the Nurses Union continues to highlight there's nothing in this budget to retain nurses we already have. Contrary to what the minister is trying to convince us. It's no good to bring new nurses to the front door if there's an exodus out the back. That's why we still have over 500 vacancies. After a decade in power, why are we still in a crisis when it comes to nurse staffing?
The Honourable Minister of Health and Community Services.
Thank you, Speaker. The member opposite seems to be plucking numbers out of the air here. We actually have, as of February, 300 RN vacancies across the system. The peak was 750 18 months ago. The facts of the case is that in the last time period of 6 months or so, we recruited 399 registered nurses. I would argue that he makes a case about retention, and we are working with the Nurses Union and other stakeholders on working conditions for healthcare workers, including nurses, to see what we can do to make things better.
The Honourable the Opposition House Leader. The Opposition House Leader.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I think the minister is playing with numbers, because I do trust the president of the Nurses Union. I'm sure they have their numbers in check. I'm sure they know how many nurses are on the ground. I'm sure they know how many nurses pay union dues. I trust their numbers. I really do. I trust any union leader's numbers. Government can say what they want to suit them, but I trust the union leader's numbers. I have to say that. Speaker, this budget also fails to allow nurse practitioners to build government, something even the federal Liberals now support. After 10 years, why are the crowd opposite still opposed? When are we going to stop forcing seniors to pay out of pocket just to access basic primary care?
The Honourable Minister of Health and Community Services.
Thank you, Speaker. Nurse practitioners form a valued part of our healthcare system. They are an integral part of primary care. From the point of view of how they are compensated, those that I have spoken to and those that we have surveyed actually kind of like the salaried arrangements. They like the benefits that go with it. I accept there are a small group who wish to work through a private practice arrangement. I have asked the RNU on more than one occasion to provide us with a model that would work. We are working towards making sure that public funds can be used to pay for primary care, whether it's delivered privately or publicly. It will not, however, be fee-for-service. It will be another mechanism.
The Honourable the Opposition House Leader.
Thank you, Speaker. And the minister needs to talk to, he's not talking to the seniors. We're talking to a lot of seniors who are struggling because of this, and we're talking to nurse practitioners who actually like to see this. So maybe we're talking to the wrong group, because we're talking to people that really care. I'm not sure who he's talking to, but people we're talking to, they continue to believe our plan works. The federal government also agrees. Speaker, yes, I got a question, don't worry. Nursing students on clinical placements not only go unpaid, they actually pay tuition for the privilege of working those placements. Other professions, like engineering, ended this practice years ago. When will the Liberals stop exploiting student nurses for free labour?
The Honourable the Minister of Education.
Thank you, Speaker, and glad to have the opportunity to answer a question related to the value that student nurses bring to the system. And that's not patting myself on the back, but I do remember I do remember my days as a nursing student and completely understand some of the challenges that are being presented to nursing students and some other health sciences students who find themselves in clinical placements where there's no pay. But we are certainly having these conversations. It's something that the student union is keen on bringing to my attention every time that we meet with them, and I've committed that this conversation will continue until we can meet some type of agreement on recognizing the students and the value that they bring to our system. We're not there yet, but we are continuing to work on it.
The Honourable the Opposition House Leader.
Thank you, Speaker. Let's hope that happens sooner rather than later, but I thank the Minister for her answer. Speaker, internationally recruited nurses have said they feel abandoned, left with no job and no support. Last fall, I raised concerns about 60 nurses from India who were still waiting for placements. Why is the Minister still hiring agency nurses instead of putting local, qualified nurses to work?
The Honourable Minister of Health and Community Services.
Thank you, Speaker. We have 178 internationally educated nurses working in the province today. 178. So that's a success story for my colleague from Immigration and Population Growth and Skills. We have $2.3 million in this year's budget to support new internationally trained nurses into this province. We have given another $500,000 for a specific mentoring program for these folk to help them orientate to the Canadian situation. We continue to look for support from outside as we bolster our numbers of RNs and reduce our RN vacancies.
The Honourable the Opposition House Leader.
Thank you, Speaker. My question was, how many are still waiting for placement? Not what you've placed, how many are still waiting for placement? We said there were 60 from India. Minister, can you tell the House how many internationally trained nurses are waiting for placement in Newfoundland and Labrador?
The Honourable the Minister of Health and Community Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy to provide that number for the gentleman opposite, and I will take today and this time as the timestamp for that data, and I'll bring it back to the House.
The Honourable the Member for Bonavista.
Speaker, yesterday in the budget speech, there was no mention of the vacant social workers position, and the last we heard last year was 100. There were a shortage of 100 social workers. We know that every vacancy represents a senior, a child, or a vulnerable Newfoundlander or Labradorian that has been greatly impacted by the shortage. I asked the Minister of Children, Seniors and Social Development to update this Honourable House on these critical social worker vacancies.
The Honourable Minister of Children, Seniors and Social Development.
Thank you, Speaker. We are certainly committed to the safety and well-being of children and youth in our province. As of March 31st, 2025, there are 277 social workers and 65 social work assistants delivering frontline child protection services in the department. Now, Mr. Speaker, the positions of student assistant workers, they're new. There's a good uptake, and it's certainly helping alleviate the workload of many of our social workers. Thank you.
The Honourable the Member for Bonavista.
Speaker, this is a big issue for the residents, there's no doubt, but the question would be, how many vacancies exist today in relation to the social worker program in our province?
The Honourable Minister of Children, Seniors and Social Development.
Mr. Speaker, we're experiencing the same problems that other jurisdictions are having when it comes to child welfare workers. And you know, we're certainly doing everything we can to entice these workers to work in our department. Last week, I had the opportunity to speak to social workers, first and second year social workers, and in my conversations with them, it was great to note that they wanted to stay in Newfoundland and Labrador, and hopefully they will. A great reception. There was a number of recruiters there, of course, looking for them, but most of them want to stay in Labrador. I also had the opportunity to speak to their parents. They want them to stay home as well. Thank you.
The Honourable Member of Bonavista.
Mr. Speaker, unsure of the number of vacancies that exist, but I'll move on. This legislature passed the new Adult Protection Act in 2021 to protect vulnerable individuals, including seniors in personal care homes. And we had a pretty robust debate on that act, that legislation. In light of the scathing report of the Auditor General into the neglect and abuse of seniors in personal care homes, has the Minister of CSSD ordered a review?
The Honourable the Minister of Children, Seniors and Social Development.
Thank you for the question. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We certainly are committed to protecting the health and well-being of all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians and ensuring the safety of those in neglectful or abusive situations. My department has policies and procedures that guide the adult protection process. My officials have a very collaborative relationship, an excellent collaborative relationship with the Department of Health and Community Services, Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services, with police, and with our justice system when dealing with these matters. The Adult Protection Act applies only when it's been legally and clinically determined that an adult is in danger. Thank you.
The Honourable Member Bonavista.
According to the AG report, there are adults that were in danger. Policies and procedures, yes, we have, but I'm assuming by the answer, no review. The Minister launched a new guide for seniors on April the 4th that highlighted information on reporting elder abuse and the Adult Protection Act and says, quote, everyone has a legal duty to report suspected cases of abuse and neglect. Speaker, why is the Minister failing to act on his legislative responsibility?
The Honourable the Minister of Children, Seniors and Social Development.
Thank you, Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Member for bringing up our guide for services and programs for seniors. It's a great guide. It's certainly something that we heard when we were traveling around the province, that seniors need a guide like that. It's a first. We launched this program last Friday here in St. John's to about 150, 160 seniors, and it was very well received. All members here, I'm sure, have been told that they can go to the office of CSSD and pick up some copies to get out in their districts when they go out for Easter. We'll have lots more printed after. And I want to address that first, if that's okay, because these guides are really important. We're getting a lot of calls on them, and people are very positive about it. Thank you.
The Honourable the Member for Harbour Main.
Speaker, last night during budget estimates, we learned that fines owing to the government has ballooned to over $50 million. Yes, $51.7 million, $51.7 million is going uncollected. Speaker, the Liberals have made many promises over the years to collect on this money, yet the problem has only gotten worse. I ask the Minister why.
The Honourable Minister of Industry, Energy and Technology.
Thank you, Speaker, and happy to stand up and speak to this even though I wasn't in the estimates last night. What I can point out that this is absolutely an evergreen issue. It's been around certainly the last 10 years. We were here the decade or so that the previous government and decades before that. It has been an issue, and it proves extremely difficult in order to find innovative solutions going forward. I don't think any side can promise that, although we've certainly made lots of efforts. I can point out, though, that the Fines Administration Division has received just under $10 million in the last year through 407 active arrangements for payment, so they'll continue on with those efforts, and I have every reason to believe that they'll continue to make good on getting people to pay the fines that they owe. Thank you.
The Honourable the Member Harbour Main.
$51.7 million is unacceptable, Speaker, and we need to find innovative ways of doing things better, like community service. And back in 2019, the Department announced the Fine Options Pilot Program for people to work off their outstanding fines. It still has not been established, and millions more has gone uncollected. Speaker, after a decade of failure, how many more years are going to go by before government takes action on this?
The Honourable Minister of Industry, Energy and Technology.
Thank you, Speaker, and I agree. Whoever the minister was in 2019 had a great idea, and I'm not sure what happened to that idea after that. Unfortunately, I've been out and there's been multiple ministers there. So I can't say whether there was a technical issue with the program. I assume. So what I can say, I can't say what the issue is with that particular program, but what I would say, similar to estimates that we had this morning where the member opposite had creative solutions to issues that we face, I would say to the member opposite, we are certainly open to any solution that anyone has to address this issue that's been around for certainly half a century. Thank you.
The Honourable the Leader of the Third Party.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the Minister of Health is using a significant 40% bed vacancy rate at the Janeway as justification for moving adult gynecology from the Health Sciences Centre. I asked the Minister, are the Janeway beds unoccupied because there are simply not enough sick children to occupy them who need them, or because Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services and government have failed to staff the hospital appropriately?
The Honourable Minister of Health and Community Services.
Thank you, Speaker. The Janeway is a valuable, even crucial resource for our healthcare system, and I'd like to take this opportunity, as it's the first I've had, to thank the staff for all their hard work during COVID and afterwards. So thank you. There is not now, nor has ever been, any intent to diminish the range of services provided at the Janeway. What I understand is happening, and it is at a very preliminary, high level, is to look at utilisation of resources across the health science site. The only thing I'm aware of in relation to the comments the member opposite makes is a potential visit from staff to go and look at other models, such as the IWK in Halifax, which is a well-renowned facility. There are no plans, concrete or otherwise.
Minister's time's expired. Thank you. The Leader of Third Party.
Thank you, Speaker. Certainly the doctors don't feel that they're being consulted or listened to on this, and feel there's more than just consultation or limited consultation. Speaker, the Minister stated that they're trying to replicate the model at the IWK Health Centre in Halifax, where women's health is in the Children's Hospital. Except he failed to add that Women's Health Centre and the Pediatric Centre are two separate buildings with a link between them. No other pediatric tertiary care centre in Canada is doing what NLHS and the department are proposing. Will the Minister simply admit that he is trying to solve a long-term care and acute care bed crisis on the backs of sick children?
The Honourable Minister of Health and Community Services.
No, I will not admit that I'm trying to do anything on the back of children, sick or otherwise. I think the member is putting words in my mouth. I have not made any proposal, nor has Dr. Parfrey, the CEO. There are discussions, and discussions have to start somewhere. And the first time you have that discussion is, we've never heard it before. So I'm not trying to be argumentative with the member, but the facts of the case is Dr. Parfrey is doing what any good, conscientious CEO should do, which is to look at the resources he has to deal with overcapacity at one of our major tertiary hospitals, and I commend him for doing it.
The Honourable Member Labrador West.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, government finally listened to the people of Labrador West and committed to satellite infrastructure in Wabash to help with wildfire response. But there's still a lot of questions about what this infrastructure actually is. So I asked the Minister, will this include permanently bringing back the water bomber base to Wabash, or is it simply just rebranding the forestry office in Labrador West?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries, Forestry and Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, to much acclaim, we announced the Atlantic Wildfire Centre in the fall of 2024. Part of that announcement is we mapped out for all to see that we intended to put infrastructure, assets in Lab West. We put forward a plan that was based on experts, professionals in the field, who designed a strategy to be able to attack wildfire both on the ground and in the air using the best of wildfire science. The honourable member continues with his opposition to the plan, noting he would prefer one asset, one water bomber. Our plan is to use wildfire science drafted by experts to place multiple assets on an at-risk basis in the areas where they're needed.
Thank you, Speaker. Satellite infrastructure is welcome, but this means little without commitment to returning the water bomber back to Labrador West where it belongs. The safety of our communities and natural resources are at stake. So I asked the Minister, will he commit to bringing the water bomber back to Wabash, which is unjustly taken from Wabash?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries, Forestry and Agriculture.
We hear the honourable member's opposition to the wildfire strategy, a plan that was put in place based on science and on best practices, a plan crafted by the very same people who successfully guided us through the 2025 wildfires of Lab West and the 2024 wildfires of Central. and for years before. This opposition to that plan, the honourable member's plan, is to place one asset. Our plan is to use wildfire science. The plan of the experts is to use wildfire science to forecast risk, to place multiple assets in the field ahead of risk, and to be able to actively fight fires. His plan is to cap Lab West at one water bomber. Our plan is to do much better than that.
Time for oral questions has expired. Presenting reports by standing select committees. Tabling of documents, the Honourable the Minister of Industry, Energy and Technology.
We're happy to table for this for the House the initial quarterly report of the Independent Churchill River Negotiation Oversight Panel. We actually spoke about this morning, didn't realize it was ready, and here it is being tabled. So,
hey, well done.
Are there any further tabling of documents? Notice of motions. The Honourable the Minister of Finance, President Treasury Board.
Thank you, Speaker. I give notice that I will on tomorrow introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Revenue Administration Act Number 9, Bill Number 112.
Further notice of motions. The Honourable the Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Okay, thank you, Speaker. I give notice that I will on tomorrow introduce a bill entitled An Act Respecting Human Organ and Tissue Donation, Bill 114.
Further notice of motions. The Honourable the Minister of Industry, Energy and Technology.
if I could have an addendum to my notice, that report is also available online, Mr. Speaker, for those that might be interested.
Duly noted, sir.
Speaker, I give notice that I will on tomorrow introduce a bill entitled An Act Respecting Renewable Energy Resources in the Province, Bill 113.
Thank you. Further notice of motions. The Honourable the Minister of
Thank you.
Government House, sorry.
Thank you, Speaker. I give notice that I will on tomorrow introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Fishing Industry Collective Bargaining Act Number 3, Bill Number 111.
Further notice of motions. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Speaker. I give notice that I will on tomorrow move the following motion that, notwithstanding Standing Order 63, this House shall not proceed with Private Members' Day on Wednesday, April 16th, but shall instead meet at 2 p.m. on that day for routine proceedings and the conduct of government business.
The Honourable the Government House Leader.
Speaker, I give notice that I will on tomorrow move the following motion that notwithstanding Standing Order 8, subsection 3B, at the conclusion of proceedings on Wednesday, April 16th, that this House do adjourn to Monday, May 12, 2025.
Further notice of motions. No further notice of motions. Answers to questions which notice has been given. Petitions. The Honourable the Member for Ferryland.
Thank you, Speaker. The background to this petition is as follows. Route 10 on the Southern Avalon forms a large section of Dorridge Loop. This is a significant piece of infrastructure and is the main highway along Dorridge Loop. This highway plays a major role in residential and commercial growth of the region. Therefore, we petition the House of Assembly as follows. We, the undersigned, call upon the House of Assembly of the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador that immediate brush cutting is required on Route 10 on the Southern Shore Highway, as large sections of brush along this highway is a significantly safety hazard for the high volume of travelling motorists who travel this highway daily. This work is essential in the prevention of motor vehicle accidents and safety on Route 10. Speaker, I've certainly done this petition many times over, and there is some brush cutting happening in the district right now as we speak, or it was up to last week. Then they were supposed to be there last October. They were supposed to be there in January. They came there 2 weeks ago. I've been up in the area 4 times, and they're doing good work, no doubt about that. But there's other areas. We got some brush cutting, but there's other areas in the district that are vital to have done. Right now, the brush cutting equipment is removed. I watched it for 3 or 4 days. They took the equipment and moved it. They had a small, I think it's called a 6500 excavator with rubber tracks on it, with an extension that reaches out to cover the road. Not a full excavator that's like out on the highway where they were twinning the highways, but a smaller excavator that does the job that it can reach so far. all right, and doing a good job at that. But all of a sudden, the equipment is moved. And I did call the department. They did say it's going to be back sometime this week. It's not back there yet. But it's important because we're coming up on this time of the year when the moose are going to be on the roads coming out through. And when you drive the district, and many parts of the district, that the alders and the trees are coming out through the guardrails. For what they have done right now, they haven't reached the major infrastructure where it's vitally needed right now, that they should be in the area, and we hope that the department can get back there and get that brush cutting done and be able to extend and get some more brush cutting in the district. Thank you, Speaker.
The honourable member of Bonavista.
Thank you, Speaker. There have been numerous incidents of residents of the District of Bonavista transported by ambulance to GB Cross Memorial in Clarenville for medical attention, only to find out that thereafter they have to wait until the following morning for medical transport home. Many of these residents are non-ambulatory seniors and are having to spend the night, some in excess of 16 hours, on a gurney in a crowded emergency room due to this. We, the undersigned, call upon the House of Assembly to urge the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador to investigate the current medical transport system and make immediate changes to better address the welfare of these residents and alleviating much-needed space in often overcrowded emergency rooms like at GB Cross Memorial. I was talking with a lady from Bunyan's Cove, Lisa Keats, and Lisa's dad needed to be transported to GB Cross. It was around a supper hour. He was transported for treatment. He was non-ambulatory, transported for treatment, received treatment, only to find out that he could not be transported at home. Lisa Keats' dad is a diabetic. And I know one would say, well, if he's in the emergency room, he may be cared for, but to leave a senior on a gurney in the emergency room for up to 16 hours, I think might come under the cruel and unusual punishment category. And I say that. What the signatures on a petition are asking for is for it to be reviewed. If Clarenville has one transport ambulance that's transporting people from the tip of the peninsula in Bonavista to St. John's, if it's only one, then that ought to be looked into. And that is what the petition asks, to look into it. We said that we've got crowded emergency rooms. Well, we do have seniors in these rooms that can't get home because they need the medical transport to be transported back is where they want to go. So I would think it serves the emergency room to know that you've got less in there, and the senior patient would like to be home as soon as he or she could get. And 16 hours is too long of a wait. So we asked the minister to look into it, and let's see what we can do with the medical transport serving the Bonavista Peninsula to GB Cross in Clarenville. Thank you, Speaker.
Orders of the day. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Speaker. I call from the order paper motion number 1.
The Honourable Member for Bayvert Green Bay.
Thank you, Speaker. It is a privilege to stand in this honourable House of Assembly today representing the great people of Bayvert Green Bay. And it is especially on days like yesterday, Budget Day, that we are reminded it is the people of our province who put us all here. Since the 28th of May last year, I have been constantly hearing of the frustration from across my district and from across the province with government decision-making. So we must never forget that this House is indeed the people's house. Newfoundlanders and Labradorians elected us to serve them. They elected us to help to make their lives better and our province stronger. And the provincial budget should be a key enabling plan to make that happen. Plan. You're going to hear me talk a lot this afternoon about plan. I've spent the bulk of my adult life associating with developing plans. And in the absence of a proper plan, we reflect on what has continued to happen. Government becomes reactionary and costs increase. So what's in this year's budget? Well, there's lots in the budget, Speaker, but there's very little that will help the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. To deal with affordability and the crisis that we are in, and all the other challenges that we are facing, like access to health care and safety across all of our communities. Budget 2025 missed a mark, Speaker. It was a missed opportunity. The budget is simply filled with Liberal re-announcements. Simply put, it is a recycled budget. We were hoping for measures that would address the soaring cost of living and improve access to health care for the more than 160,000 Newfoundlanders and Labradorians who do not have access to a family doctor. But this didn't happen. The budget also completely ignores health care in rural Newfoundland and Labrador. There's nothing new in the budget to address the cost of living, and no tax breaks for families or seniors. And in fact, the sugar tax remains. The indexing of the seniors benefit does not go far enough. It's only approximately a little over $40. Our party proposed to increase the seniors benefit by 20%. It would have provided the province's most vulnerable seniors with an additional $300 annually, helping them to actually do better than tread water when facing the rising cost of living. There was nothing in the budget for nurse practitioners. The repeated calls by our party and others from across the entire province for the Liberal government to act to cover the cost of primary care services provided by nurse practitioners have simply gone unheeded. The Medical Transportation Assistance Program is still not 100% funded. We asked for the singles vaccine to be offered to all seniors, not just those 65 to 70 in our province. Again, government failed to act. Government didn't provide any details on the $200 million contingency to address the U.S. tariffs. We have no idea, nor does the rest of the province, on how this money will be used. There was not enough in this budget to help grow and diversify our economy. This is especially discouraging at a time of so much global economic uncertainty, considering the impact of the U.S. tariffs. And with so much opportunity to be leveraged from our resources with a right plan. When we looked at the budget document, Speaker, we always look for measures that will benefit Newfoundlanders and Labradorians and help improve their lives, as well as measures that will set our province on a better path for prosperity. Unfortunately, the budget does neither. Let's look at the Liberal track record. Since being elected in 2015, the Liberals have delivered 10 budgets. This is their 10th. This is also the last budget before the next provincial general election. The people of the province will only think about this budget that was brought down yesterday. However, they will be thinking about all 10 Liberal budgets. And if I could quote from a leader that I serve with, who used this term, a decade of darkness for many Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. They will be thinking about 10 years of poor fiscal management. They will be thinking about 10 years of poor decision-making, unless you are a Liberal insider. They will be thinking about 10 years of poor accountability. And when people go to the polls this year, they will be thinking about a government that is out of touch with reality. You know, there's so many Newfoundland and Labradorians that are trying to live just day to day to get by. We are not all in the same boat. They will be thinking about the need for a new government simply because they deserve a better government. Hear, hear. Our party, under our leader, the MHA for Stephenville Port-au-Port, is ready to offer all Newfoundlanders something better. Our party has a plan that will make the life for all, not just those connected to the Liberal government. So what is the main reason that the people of our province need and want a better alternative? The answer is simple. The current government is not delivering for them. They are not addressing the needs of our people. They are out of touch with what really matters to all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. And then today, I will give actually many examples. And for those from around the Bay, like where I grew up, the Gilnet is full of them. The big question is, are people better off now than they were 10 years ago? There is only one answer to that question: no. The cost of living is too high. Health care is inaccessible with long wait times. Thousands of people are without a family doctor. People have to pay to see a nurse practitioner to access primary care. And people, so many people now, don't feel safe in their own communities. Crime is on the rise everywhere across our great province, unfortunately. Let's look at the facts about the Liberal record and determine how the last 10 years have impacted the people of our great province. I'm going to start here and highlight some of the taxation, the sugar tax. Let's look at the Liberal sugar tax. Everyone knows that this is a regressive and senseless tax, just like the carbon tax. We are the only jurisdiction in Canada adding it. Why? And most people see this Liberal policy nothing more than an arrogant, out-of-touch tax grab. The sugar tax does nothing to help create a healthier population. In fact, this tax is making life even more difficult for those trying to making ends meet. And I'm reminded, of seniors that I have talked to who've complained to me because they like having a Pepsi with a plate of Fisherman's Brews. So let's look at some articles that relate to the sugar tax. Voice of the VOCM from the 5th of August, and this was titled, "Provincial Tax Not Curbing Newfoundland's Craving for Sugary Drinks," the Canadian Beverage Association. So the numbers from the Canadian Beverage Association suggest Newfoundland and Labrador's thirst for sugary drinks has not been totally curbed by the provincial government's sugar tax. CEO Krista Scaldwell says over 70% of those asked say they weren't changing their habits, despite there having been a levy tacked on to the sale price. She chalks it up to people wanting to have the products they've always liked, just like the rest of Canada does. Scaldwell says companies have put an extra push on developing new products that contain less sugar and have made efforts to make nutrition information more apparent. She says imposing such a tax isn't a problem solver, as many will either not change their habits or they'll switch to another sugary product that doesn't fall under the list of tax items. We are in a cost of living crisis here in Newfoundland and Labrador. We must find all possible means to lower the taxation across all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. You know, the minister yesterday quoted Churchill, so I will highlight what Churchill said with regards to government and taxation as well. Government can't tax themselves into prosperity. It would be like standing in a bucket and trying to pull yourself up by the handle. And you know, I'm afraid if the Liberals fully understood how buckets are used in rural Newfoundland and Labrador, that they would want to tax that as well. Support for seniors. Caring for seniors is truly a moral obligation of government. We have to take care of those that came before us and built this province. Advancing age leaves people more vulnerable. Abandoning seniors in their vulnerable years is morally reprehensible. So let's look at what the Liberals have said previously. Their 2021 Red Book said, "Our government understands the struggles faced by our seniors and will ensure it provides vital support to seniors in Newfoundland and Labrador." Clearly, that was just rhetoric, because our seniors are suffering. No one has been failed more by this Liberal government over the past decade than our seniors. The Liberals boast of creating a seniors advocate position as an officer of this House, but they continue to ignore the advocate. They don't bother to listen to what the advocate tells them about the plight of all of our seniors. Furthermore, the seniors advocate does not have investigatory powers. The Liberal government didn't put them in the legislation, despite the repeated calls of PCMHAs back when this legislation was first introduced in this House. What does that mean? That means that the seniors advocate can only do so much. They can be an advocate, but they cannot investigate. Sadly, we have thousands of seniors now in poverty. The Seniors Advocate report found a third of our seniors can't afford to make ends meet. 2/3 of those seniors skip meals and can't afford prescribed diets, medicine, and medical devices. Many live on toast and tea. That's like being in a prison. To use the advocate's own words, actually, that's worse than being in a prison. Many split their medicine, compromising their health. Under the Liberal government, seniors have become more impoverished. They are worse off than when the Liberals came to office. In December 2024, we brought forward a private member's resolution to this House to immediately increase the seniors' benefit by 20%, so $300 annually. The Liberals voted against it. Shameful. And this increase was once again denied in the budget. They tied it to inflation. And in tying it to inflation, they gave our seniors a little over a $40 increase. That is insufficient to what our seniors need. That is, in fact, merely a pittance. I want to highlight from the press release that was put out in December after we did that debate on our private members' resolution. And our PC's proposal would have provided the province's most vulnerable seniors with an additional $300 annually starting this past January, helping them to face the rising cost of living. If the difference between our plan and what the Liberals just did in the budget is over $250. It is heartbreaking that the Liberals are delaying supporting our seniors who are struggling more than ever to afford necessities like food, medicine, and housing. The modest increase, and it was just a modest increase, would have been a meaningful step to alleviate their financial hardships. Struggling seniors deserve better from government. Our seniors, though, can be assured of one thing, that when we form government, that 20% is going to be added to their seniors' benefit. We have a situation now where the frail elderly in our province are being ignored. The 2022 Health Accord said our seniors are among the frailest in all of Canada. The Accord said there needs to be a program designed specifically to address their needs, including care, recreation, and social connection, so to make them stronger, more healthy, and more independent, to essentially to take care of our seniors in their golden years. Recommendation 8.1 of the Health Accord demanded that this government develop and implement a formal provincial frail elderly program to address the critical need of our population. So, years later, where's the program? Where's the actions on this recommendation of the Health Accord? Gone, or completely absent. And then we have the government's so-called poverty plan. The government released a paltry plan claiming to be a poverty reduction plan. The Liberals' big idea to fix poverty in seniors was a basic income program, but only 110 seniors have enrolled. Every member of this House here knows there is more than 110 seniors who need that benefit. So this is from an article from the Canadian Press from a month ago, this past year, so a month ago. And it was titled, Newfoundland launched a basic income program for older adults. Only 110 people have enrolled so far in Newfoundland and Labrador's basic income program for older adults. A figure advocates say underscores the complexity of traditional social assistance programs that often leave users afraid of losing benefits. Joss Mee, CEO of the nonprofit Food First NL, said he wasn't surprised enrollment seemed low. He said the program itself is so complicated. I would imagine that the conversation about a big shift in how your benefits come true could be intimidating. And for some, with even more money coming in, they risk losing government paying for much needed services like home support. Dan Meads agreed that people may worry they'll end up with fewer benefits. The provincial coordinator with the Transition House Association of Newfoundland and Labrador said he hopes the province is tracking such problems and adjusting the program with an aim to ultimately scale it up. Smee said people on income support are often wary of the program's complex and voluminous rules, many of which are set up to claw back benefits if a person earns money or changes their living arrangements. They may be afraid to agree to receive more money in a program, he said, if it doesn't really benefit them in the end. So here we have a situation where you could be offering on one end and taking more back on the other. I also like to highlight here, when we talk about seniors and benefits, and I was open to see something in the budget on that, and that's the provincial home repair program. There's an opportunity there for seniors to get $5,000, up to $5,000, to support some basic home improvement, windows, doors, etc. We've had far too many seniors, and I know of several in my district, that were excluded because they were over that threshold by $47. Their challenge then becomes, do I stay in my home, or do I then become a greater burden on the health care system in looking for social housing? We need to ultimately look at those thresholds to reduce the complete burden on our system. I'd like now to talk about the shingles vaccine. So the shingles vaccine for seniors. This was another missed opportunity and an announcement done in haste. Like my colleague on this side of the House, MHA for Conception Bay said in a news release, the Liberal government announcement on the shingles vaccine is another example of doing the bare minimum just as we approach an election year. He went on to say the Liberals are more focused on photo ops than truly addressing the needs of Newfoundland and Labrador's seniors and vulnerable populations. I'll highlight from our press release from a month ago with regards to the shingles vaccine. So MHA from Conception Bay South criticized the government for failing to cover all seniors and vulnerable individuals. He says the Liberals' commitment to coverage for some seniors only occurred because we, the Progressive Conservatives, committed to full coverage for all seniors. The Liberal government's announcement is another example, like I said, of just doing the bare minimum. For years, the Seniors Advocate has called for the shingles vaccine to be made available to seniors and immunocompromised individuals. But the Liberals have repeatedly refused to act. Now, we learn that the coverage for all seniors that the Liberals announced was really just for those 65 to 70, a half-hearted solution that leaves too many people behind. So what about seniors over 70? Do they exist? Yes, they exist, and yes, they need coverage. In fact, the Seniors Advocate has been calling for full coverage since 2019, and the Liberals' delayed action is a clear sign they are only responding now because of the upcoming election. It is unfortunate that it took pressure from our party to force them to act. Now, I want to highlight, with regards to the shingles vaccine, from a research study that was done in Ontario. So one thing that we know with regards to shingles, the risk increases with age. And by the time you reach 85, your risk is 50%. So the research study in Ontario found that there was with those that received the vaccine, there was a 19% decrease in shingles-related outpatient visits. There was also a 38% decrease in shingles-related emergency department visits and hospitalization. So we have a situation here. If we provide a small additional investment, providing that shingles vaccine to all seniors, we can alleviate significant pressure on our health care system. There is a significant return on the shingles investment, and that must be made. The other thing I'd also like to highlight with regards to the shingles vaccine is it has a positive impact on reducing the onset of dementia. Again, why this government only offering 65 to 70 is beyond me. We, on this side of the House, the PC party, will implement shingles to all seniors. I'd now like to talk about poverty and affordability. Let's talk about the plight of vulnerable people in the broad range of age brackets, including children. First, let me provide some context. When the PC government came to office in 2003, 22 years ago, Newfoundland and Labrador led the country in child poverty. That was after the legacy of 14 years of Liberal governance. The PC government then announced a bold strategy to move from worst to best in addressing child poverty, and to do so within a decade. The PC poverty reduction strategy was a comprehensive, cross-departmental, collaborative, flexible, multifaceted, and highly invested strategy to address poverty in its many forms. It was not a cobbled-together list of things that government was already doing. It was targeted measures focused on delivering the greatest results. It was a plan. Most importantly, it was focused on giving people the means of escaping the grip of poverty and achieving a measure of self-reliance, freedom, and independence. National poverty leaders called this the model for all of Canada. A decade later, in 2015, when this government came to power, this province was reporting the lowest child poverty rates in the country on objective measures. The plan succeeded in delivering for people in need. That was the PC plan. Stats Canada information confirmed that Newfoundland and Labrador in 2015 had the lowest level of poverty in Canada. In fact, there were almost 38,000 fewer people living in poverty in Newfoundland and Labrador in 2015 than there were in 2003. And the percentage of our population receiving income support at 6.4% was the lowest ever recorded in Newfoundland and Labrador. We were the leaders in poverty reduction, Speaker. It was the result of a lot of hard work by a lot of people and a proper plan. But what has happened since? Well, in 2015 was the year the government changed. The Liberals came into office, and it has gone downhill from there. Whether out of spite or ignorance, the Liberals cancelled the poverty reduction strategy. Yes, you got that right. The Liberals cancelled the poverty reduction strategy. And what did they replace it with? Absolutely nothing. And we all know that actions have consequences. Today, after 10 years of Liberal governments, we are no longer Canada's leader in addressing child poverty. Children in this province are worse off than when the Liberals came to power. So you can see, Mr. Speaker, facts bear truth. This has been truly a decade of darkness. The 2021 Red Book promised to lead development of a renewed strategy to reduce poverty in consultation with stakeholders, experts, and community leaders. But that promise was only lip service. All these years later, there is still no poverty reduction strategy. In 4 years, the current Premier has failed to produce one, despite his promise. In November 2023, there was a brief, cobbled-together news release, barely a page long, a paltry excuse for a strategy. It was full of policy O's, nothing for seniors, nothing for persons with disabilities, nothing for Indigenous, northern, or remote communities, nothing related to health care needs and education, nothing that pulled together community groups and changed lives through targeted measures. These were mostly existing initiatives, really just Scots taped together with some petty quotes tacked on. This was not a model for anyone in the country to emulate or to be excited about. This was nothing but a charade, a camouflage for inaction. And to quote from around the Bay, not a faux loaf, but merely the crust slice on a loaf. 10 years to build, 10 years to destroy. It took a decade for the PC strategy to change lives and achieve its bold objective, because addressing poverty takes time. We know that. In the Liberal decade without a strategy, those gains have been completely eroded. We are no longer a model for all of Canada. We are the cautionary tale. It is the unfortunate result of bad decisions by this Liberal government. Liberals did this. There's no one to blame for the Liberals' bad decisions but the government themselves. It was their choice. They had a choice, and deliberately made and deliberately continued on their watch. They own the consequences of those decisions. Unfortunately, all of Newfoundland and Labrador is wearing it. It was a shameful legacy of constant neglect and consequent suffering. Budget 2025 is no better. You would think that after a decade of doing the wrong thing and seeing the consequences, the Liberals would be ready in the budget to do the right thing, especially since they promised in their 2021 Red Book. But no, in this year's budget, the Liberals have simply added up the normal social spending and pretended it is a comprehensive strategy. It is not. There is no planning, no collaboration, no targeting, and simply no accountability. It's just words on a page. We have a situation that continues to deepen, and that is the affordability crisis, which is making all of this worse. Instead of shifting people out of poverty, this government has overseen an increase in the ranks of the poor, and as some like to say, the working poor. The unaddressed affordability crisis is leaving more people unable to make ends meet. Food banks have never been busier. People go to food banks because they are desperate. Lineups at food banks remind people of the dirty 30s. We are constantly hearing the news of the demand for food banks continues to surge. People have nowhere else to turn. People are struggling. Newfoundlanders and Labradorians across the entire province are struggling. It's a very sad story. I want to highlight now, with regards to food banks, a couple of articles that I think reinforces the messaging with regards to food banks and the concerns. This one is from CBC News this past November, and this from the Community Sharing Association expects to help 8,500 families going into the holidays. And these food banks managers say more government support is needed as demand for services increases. Demand is increasing across Newfoundland and Labrador food banks ahead of the holiday season. And one food bank chair says a lack of solutions from government is not helping. Peter Wells, chair of the board of the Conception Bay South Paradise Food Bank, said his group is moving between 350 to 400 food hampers per month. Demand is up, donations down, he said, but a lack of government support is making things even more desperate. We get absolutely nothing from government. And in fact, I've even heard people say that there's no need for food bank. If there's no need for food bank, why are we here? Wells told CBC News. I've been hearing that for over 35 years. Government got to change its attitude and realize that people of the province are going hungry. And the province is not helping one bit. At the Community Food Sharing Association in St. John's, which supports 60 food banks across Newfoundland and Labrador, manager Tina Bishop said the cost of food has risen 67% from last year, and the cost of transporting that food has risen by 51%. The association, excuse me, Bishop would like to see more government programs like income support get reviewed in the long term. Food Banks Canada said 62% of food bank clients in Newfoundland and Labrador are also on income support. A basic right, a basic human right, is food on the table, and nobody, and I mean nobody, should have to go without food. As Bishop noted, their numbers are showing over 30% of users are children under the age of 18. There is no child in Canada that should have to go without food. Wells said she'd like to see the province help by addressing taxation and introducing grants to help food banks. Now, Speaker, on that note of helping food banks and government support for food banks, I'd like to note, a budget and government allocation, it's all about choices. Just imagine the $1 million plus being spent on a useless political office in Grand Falls, Windsor, to give a former candidate a job if that amount was distributed across our Newfoundland and Labrador food banks. A large number of people could have been helped. Budgeting is about choices, and unfortunately the Liberals continue to show they view taxpayer money as their own. Let's stay on some of the food bank issues. And I got another article here with regards to the ongoing demand. And this is from Radio Canada this past fall as well, noting food banks in Newfoundland and Labrador are so desperate they're even cutting back on instant coffee. Some food banks are cutting back hamper items as demand surges across Canada. At the Bridges to Hope Food Bank in St. John's, spiking demand is forcing staff members to cut back on what they give to the hungry. They used to hand out 1 full cup of instant coffee, 1 full cup. Now it's only 3/4 of a cup, said Executive Director Leslie Burgess. Just kind of small cost-saving measures like that, because we don't want to see our hampers get any smaller. Burgess said the belt tightening is because they expect to serve thousands more people this year compared to last. She expects 17,000 people walk through their doors by the end of the year, a 30% rise over the previous year. Bridges to Hope isn't only food bank in Newfoundland and Labrador, as I noted, seeing that spike in demand. And they noted we could see upwards of 4 new people registering every day of the week. Caitlin Kirk, Communications and Outreach Coordinator of the St. Vincent de Paul Food Bank in Carbonear, a rural town more than 100 kilometres from St. John's, noted demand is crazy high and everyone's struggling. Donors are struggling. We've seen people that were previously regular donors now coming to us for help. Food banks are reaching their limit. Food bank demand is nearly double what it was 5 years ago, according to the report. The report says increased in housing, increases in food prices are driving more people towards the food bank. It's not uncommon for us to talk to someone whose rent has just been increased $300 or $400, or for someone on a fixed income, that's money gotten from somewhere, and usually in the food budget, that is the first to be taken, Burgess said. The report also said more food bank clients are working at 18%, up from 12% in 2019. They're working poor. It also reports that nearly 70% of food bank users live in markets where rental houses and the rental costs are soaring, while a third of clients are children. The report also noted that 32% of clients are newcomers to Canada who have been in the country for less than 10 years. Meanwhile, for some of the clients at the food bank Clark runs, face an additional barrier between them and their next meal, and that is the transportation to get to the food bank, because a number of them live in the areas where there is no public transportation. I'd like to highlight from a press release that my fellow colleague from Bonavista highlighted last month with regards to increased food bank usage demonstrate need for a fulsome poverty reduction and prevention plan. Recent news articles indicate that 50% of people who are now visiting food banks are new users. We know from past studies that many of these people are seniors and working individuals. That means that the cost of living crisis in our province is worsening. We need, as was done before by a previous progressive Conservative administration, a responsive poverty reduction and prevention strategy. with the goal, as was done previously by that PC administration, of making our province's poverty rates the lowest in the country. This strategy must look at preventing poverty in addition to providing services to those experiencing poverty, Party highlighted. I must wonder if the Fury Liberals have an effective poverty reduction and prevention strategy, would food bank use be increasing? So let me just highlight there on a poverty and strategy before I continue on what we will do as a PC government. We will cancel the sugar tax. We will raise the seniors' benefit by 20%. And we will continue to lead the charge for the complete repeal of the carbon tax, not just the consumer carbon tax, but the industrial carbon tax as well. And we will turn back time to deliver a responsive poverty reduction and prevention strategy. We delivered it once, and it was the best in Canada, and we will do it again. I'd now like to talk about health care. Liberals have ignored the health care accord regarding child poverty. The Liberal government is ignoring their own health accord published in 2022. That accord says the following about the consequences of this resurgence of child poverty on their watch. Children who experience poverty have an increased likelihood of chronic illness and a shortened life expectancy. Every child deserves an equal opportunity. Poverty creates and widens achievement gaps. Starting in infancy, gaps are evident in key aspects of learning, knowledge, and socio-emotional development. Children living in poverty lag their peers at kindergarten entry and ultimately are more likely to drop out of school or fail to obtain post-secondary education. Poverty leads to poor physical, emotional, and behavioral health. Children living in poverty are more likely to experience food insecurity and are less likely to receive preventative medical and dental care. Children living in poverty are more likely to live in neighborhoods with concentrated poverty, which is associated with numerous social ills, such as academic underachievement, more social and behavioral problems, worse health and physical outcomes, exposure to environmental toxins, and other physical hazards, including crime and violence. We also note the reality of intergenerational poverty, that is, poverty transmitted from one generation to another, with children from families living in poverty more likely to become adults themselves living in poverty. The consequences of intergenerational poverty include food insecurity, birth and development issues, unsafe living conditions, and increased risk of violence, incarceration, and victimization. Every consequence of growing up in poverty acts as another barrier for someone to rise above the poverty line. This province has a higher percentage of families and unattached individuals with after-tax incomes less than $40,000 compared to Canada as a whole. So do we believe our children are our future? If we do, it is time for action. And we are talking about children living in poverty. If government is failing them at this age, where do they end up when they grow up? Government must now look at what was done previously by a previous PC administration and have a proper poverty reduction strategy. I now like to shift to persons with disabilities, and that's no better. Let's consider persons with disabilities. A very important issue, not just an important issue, but I believe we as a society, we in this House of Assembly have a moral obligation to take care of those that are least able to defend themselves. The 2021 Red Book stated, all people have the right to access services and participate fully in their communities without barriers. The Liberal government affirms an ongoing commitment and partnership with the Provincial Advisory Council for the inclusion of persons with disabilities and the Coalition of Persons with Disabilities, COD. We will continue to work with stakeholders to ensure equitable access to services and opportunities for people with disabilities. But are persons with disabilities really any better off under the Liberals? No. Simply put, no. The Coalition of Disabilities refused to celebrate with the Premier over their treatment. In November 2023, the Coalition of Disabilities dropped out of the Premier's International Day celebration because of the government's regressive actions on the Buildings Accessibility Act, on compliance with accessibility standard. The government ignored the recommendations of the advisory board. Unbelievable. The government has also removed some disabilities from protection. Again, unbelievable. Advocates have used terms such as backwards, outdated, and an illusion of inclusion to describe the changes. This is the opposite of what the Premier promised: equitable partnership and communities without barriers. It is the exact opposite of what he owed to persons with disabilities in this province. It is the exact opposite of what all of us, we have a moral obligation. We need results, not lip service. Lip service and photo ops do not lead to inclusion. Only tangible investment, developing collaboration with persons with disabilities will lead to real change. The Coalition of Disabilities Newfoundland and Labrador, COD&L, have two key requests: the creation of a disabilities advocate and multi-year core funding. So where is this Liberal government on either? The budget even yesterday? Neither of them have been actioned. So let me just review what was done with regards to the disability advocate. The Newfoundland, and this was a review, an article from Juanita Mercer in the Telegram, titled "Newfoundland Government Promised to Create a Disability Advocate in 2020. Why hasn't it been done?" People with disabilities in Newfoundland and Labrador have been waiting for the advocate for persons with disabilities since it was first put into a ministerial mandate letter back in 2020, 5 years ago. How many politicians does it take to create a disability advocate position? 3. That's how many ministers CSSD has had, but none of them will do it. Why? The promise to create a disability advocate has sat on these ministers' mandate letters for so long that the original minister who was tasked with it has retired from politics. In April 2021, when one of the Liberal leadership candidates took over the portfolio, the Premier wrote, "Please continue to work to establish the advocate for persons with disabilities in Newfoundland and Labrador." Today, with the current minister, that mandate is still there. But what work has been done? Nancy Reid, the Executive Director of COD&L, said that a disability advocate is integral to ensuring equitable rights and opportunities for persons with disabilities in our province. Reid said she was a member of the Provincial Advisory Council for the Inclusion of Persons with Disabilities for 6 years. And during that time, the Council strongly informed the Minister about the importance of the advocate. Disability rights activists Anne Malone encouraged everyone in the province to think about how many people they see in their daily lives who have visible minorities. Persons with disabilities can be any of us, and many of us acquire disability over our lifetime, Reid indicated. So what does the community think? Reid said, people are extremely frustrated. I have disabilities, she said, and sometimes it feels defeating. You feel like you're just treading water all the time, and you don't know how much longer you can tread water before you go under. It's a really difficult time. Every day a child's in school with ASL or without a screen reader or whatever is needed, a day in that child's life that cannot be recovered. We don't have to sit for years and years on mandates. We just don't have that time. Lives are passing, and particularly in early life, the way that we prepare children to go into the world is going to either shine a light or cast a shadow for their entire future. If we don't have access to things that other children do, not only will they live the consequences of that denial of their rights, they'll also be blamed for the conditions that they live in and be further stigmatized. 5 years is simply too long to wait. Malone, and this is what I want to reinforce here about funding. Malone argued this delay isn't an issue of scarce resources. She said it's an issue about a government chooses to spend the resources that it has and what it prioritizes. Over and over, in the choices that they make, they have shown us that we are not among their priorities. That is utterly shameful. I also want to highlight at this time, as I conclude this piece on the disability funding and support, and that is, the funding, labour market development assistance funding, and the squabble between the Liberal government here and the Liberal government in Ottawa last year. And they are most vulnerable into that mix. That labour market development funding for our community supported employment, and I have 54 of those individuals in my district. It is one of the most, if not the most beneficial funding programs in this province. There is a dignity. There is a dignity for our most vulnerable in having employment. So, we must be careful with that funding, to ensure that we never, ever again put the most vulnerable in this province in the mix of a squabble over funding. And I want to highlight, the comments from the COD&L, this Coalition of Disabilities Newfoundland and Labrador, and that was Nancy Reid, what she said about the budget from yesterday. Nothing in the budget that will be created or discussed, and nothing with regards to the minister's mandate. Nothing there for us. Speaker, I'd now like to turn to housing for a while. Let me begin by saying that every Newfoundlander and Labradorian deserves the right to have a safe home that they can afford. Housing is a basic human need. The Liberals' lack of planning produced a housing crisis on their own. So what is the housing situation in the province today? Thousands are on the wait list for homes with Newfoundland and Labrador housing. People who want to buy homes, especially young Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, can't afford to. Vacancy rates for rentals are impossibly low. We got people couch serving for looking for a place to stay. Our shelters are full. Most unfortunately, we've seen it. Homeless people living in tents in the fall and winter. And before that, on the grassy fields across the street here. Until the government actually sent in the police to move them. Shameful. Investigative reporter discovered that hundreds of new homes the government proclaimed that they had been built. In fact, only a grand total of 11 last year were built. Current units owned by the Housing Corporation sit vacant and unrepaired because the government can't get around to fixing them, despite severe housing shortage. Vulnerable people are living in unsafe dwellings because the alternative is a tent. Too many Newfoundlanders and Labradorians cannot find a safe and affordable place to live. That impacts their quality of life and limits opportunity for family growth, community growth, and economic sustainability. Without an adequate housing supply, people are left with limited options, and homelessness will continue to rise. Newly advertised rental units have long lists of people applying. The real estate market does not have enough supply, which drives prices up, and home ownership is increasingly hard to achieve. Many young people are living with their parents or roommates while just dreaming of home ownership. Seniors are struggling to keep up with the cost of eating and maintaining their large family homes. They want to continue to live independently, but say their existing home is too big for them. We believe that everyone needs a home, not just a roof over their head. We also realize that housing is a continuum which follows a person over their lifetime. Because there's a housing shortage all across this continuum, the number of people moving and freeing up homes for others has stalled. The Liberal solution was to lease a hotel from their friends. Yes, they signed a sole source contract for 3 years to lease this building from their friends, a blank check from our taxpayer account. The Liberals never issued a public call for proposals. They leased this hotel with no plan, no housing staff, and in fact, let it sit empty for months until a not-for-profit operator stepped in. Unreal. The Liberals are tearing down houses instead of repairing them. Now, on housing, I want to highlight 4 things that you really, I guess, need. And housing is a integrated, requires an integrated plan. So I think most of us realize, to have a house, you need land. And we have significant challenges with Crown lands. That is holding up people that want to build and economic activity. The other one is permits. I've had a couple companies in my district that were delayed several months for a quarry permit. That delay prevented a number of houses from being built last summer. We also then need material, so lumber, windows, etc. And we have a number of Newfoundland and Labrador companies that are looking to hire and that are in a position to help support that housing need, particularly some sawmills, if they were provided additional forestry allocation. And then the other thing that we need in building a house, we need labor. And we have a shortage of trades. We have to reinvest in our trades across carpentry, plumbing. With all of that, then we need to look at housing across a continuum and across the total supply factors that are required. Before I leave housing, I will touch on what my colleague highlighted 2 days ago with regards to Newfoundland housing tearing down more badly needed homes. And that was the MHA for Cape St. Francis. He highlighted and was critical of the Liberal government over the consistent 200 NLC units that are vacant and in need of repairs, with some 3,000, can you believe it, 3,000 low-income families waiting for housing. Wouldn't that cause government to expedite now repairing those homes?
Still waiting for a better tomorrow.
There is currently a 1.5 vacancy rate in St. John's as rent costs have exploded amid tight inventories. The wait list has doubled in the past 5 years, while these units sat empty for several months and became vandalized, said the MHA for Cape St. Francis. It is ironic that another 4 units in the neighbourhood were sold off by the Liberals after sitting empty for over a year. Why can't we fix these units and give families keys? The numbers don't lie. The Liberals have consistently failed to properly manage our housing inventory. Let's not forget that this government allowed 32 units in Corner Brook to decay and then to be torn down. And while the minister of the day boasted about 750 new homes being constructed, media eventually exposed the truth that it was only 11. We need a sense of urgency. We need to ensure that the tradespeople there with Newfoundland housing are available and are hired so that we can expedite the repair and provide more families keys. I'd now like to talk about health care access. The 2021 Red Book promised a new approach to health care to provide better outcomes, to increase patient satisfaction rates, and to deliver services to meet the needs of people in communities across the province. Now that sounds wonderful on the surface, but again, that is just rhetoric, because we are in a health care crisis, and so many of you across the province know that. Every Newfoundlander and Labradorian deserves timely access to quality health care service. Sadly, that is not the case, thanks to this government. In fact, studies show our province ranks the lowest in Canada for access to health care. This is from VOCM, an article 2 months ago. Newfoundland and Labrador ranks lowest in Canada for home care access, study finds. a new study by the CDAO Institute shows Newfoundland and Labrador's healthcare system is last among the provinces and territories in terms of access to care and second to last in preventative care. The study also found that a high proportion of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians didn't have access to dental care, home care, and prescription drugs because of the cost. 82% of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians claim regular access to a family doctor, below the Canadian average of 86% and below the international average. Junior policy analyst with CDAO, Zhang, said access to care drags Newfoundland and Labrador's overall health care performance down. Newfoundland and Labrador and Nunavut are showing the weakest outcomes. Their conclusion in the report shows that access to care is a national priority to improve our health care performance. Newfoundland and Labrador scored below the international average for all categories. Now, I want to highlight what was in the budget yesterday with regards to improving service delivery. And this is on page 13 in the budget for those that are following along. As part of our plan to create a more efficient and effective system, we are presently in the construction phase of an ambulatory care clinic and 2 urgent care centres on the northeast Avalon to provide improved services to 50% of the province's population. So my question for this government, where is the plan for the other 50% of the population? Where is the plan for rural Newfoundland and Labrador? The 2021 Red Book promised that they would be expanding health care workforce development by attracting new physicians and other medical professionals. Let's have a little reality check. Since then, many physicians have left their practices, saying their administrative burdens are unmanageable and they are not receiving proper support from government. Nurses are insulted that temporary travel nurses from outside the province are paid more than nurses who already work here. The government continues to refuse to offer jobs to in-demand medical professionals at the start of their programs of study, when they are planning where they will practice and live after graduating. The Newfoundland and Labrador Medical Association says 163,000 people in this province do not have a family doctor. ERs are regularly closed because of a lack of medical professionals. Health care in this province is indeed in crisis, and people needing care are suffering. Newfoundland and Labrador deserves better. Now, with regards to access to care, I want to highlight what was promised in my own district 11 months ago, and that was a clinic in Lassie and a clinic in Triton. How long does it take to establish those clinics? Now, the need for those clinics are there, because if we invest in both areas with a nurse practitioner and have those clinics, it will take the pressure off the regional hospitals, and then it will take the pressure off the hospital in central Newfoundland in Grand Falls Winter. We simply need more frontline care. Here, here. I'd now like to highlight, and this is from the Nurses Union, and this was a CBC article from 3 weeks back. Overfilled emergency room and rising violence are threatening nurses in Newfoundland and Labrador, the Nurses Union said. 11 nurses recently left a surgical unit at St. Clair's Mercy Hospital due to working conditions. The Nurses Union says staff-to-patient ratios are needed, a review to prevent unsafe workplaces. A Nurses Union rep said nurses in Newfoundland and Labrador are now dealing with a rise in violence in overfilled emergency departments and is calling for a mandated nurse-to-patient ratio to create safer workloads for nurses. Yvette Coffey, president of the Nurses Union of Newfoundland and Labrador, says hospitals are running over capacity with patients placed in beds in hallways, I've heard the stories, due to overflowing emergency rooms. Despite that surge in demand, the number of nurses taking care of those patients have stayed the same, Coffey highlighted. Our nurses, he said, are getting burned out, and we need to have safe staffing. She also highlighted that the acuity of patients in hospital has also increased significantly, noting hospital beds would previously hold patients with less severe health problems, like someone recovering from a knee surgery. These days are behind us. There should have been an allocation to hire new nursing graduates. We should offer a permanent, not casual, not part-time, but full-time job to every single nursing grad this year. She also said she hoped to see a larger investment in recruiting and retention efforts for registered nurses, nurse practitioners, and other healthcare professionals. There is just so many things that the government miss, said Coffey. Bottom line, from the President of the Nurses Union, government has failed to meet the moment. Sad. Before I leave healthcare professionals, I want to talk about one that is near and dear to a lot of us, because I've seen them in action up close, and that is nurse practitioners. The 2021 Red Book promised to expand healthcare workforce development by increasing the number of nurse practitioners to provide care across our communities. However, the Liberals have refused to cover the cost of primary care that nurse practitioners provide in their clinics, meaning patients needing this care at a nurse practitioner's office must pay out of their own pockets. By contrast, visits to family doctors are covered by Medicare. With the Newfoundland Medical Association saying that 163,000, can you imagine? 163,000 Newfoundlanders and Labradorians without a family doctor. Many people now count on nurse practitioners to provide this primary care. Why they are also looking for that primary care with them is because it is front-line access. Sadly, because the government forces people to pay for this care, those who cannot afford it does without it. Newfoundlanders and Labradorians deserve better. They deserve front-line care. Even the federal government said nurse practitioners should be paid by the government for primary health care services. Yet the Minister of Health still refuses. Why? We asked the Minister on March the 5th this year. His response, fee-for-service does not work for primary care. It does not work for primary care physicians. I do not propose to have anything to do with it when it comes to nurse practitioners. Unbelievable. People should not have to pay out of pocket to see a nurse practitioner. Now, I'm former military, and we use really that nurse practitioner for frontline support. It works. I've also been across the north in Canada, and that is the motto across the nursing stations in the north. That, again, is highly successful. We need that model now here in Newfoundland and Labrador. I'd now like to touch on medical transportation. The 2021 Red Book said that Liberals will continue to support families who must travel for medical care. Reality check. Many people needing medical transportation assistance cannot get it and cannot afford their share. No one is suffering more than Labradorians, whose flight costs within their province are more expensive than flights to Europe. People are skipping appointments because they cannot afford to get there, and that is placing their health at risk. Our province has a very dispersed rural population, so adequate coverage for medical transportation is essential if we are to ensure people get the care they need when they need it. This government failures are undermining the health of our people, and life expectancy is falling. Again, Newfoundlanders and Labradorians deserve better. I'd like to highlight with regards to the transportation cost, what my colleague from Torngat Mountains has highlighted with the cost from Labrador. And she highlighted that again in the fall with a press release. The travel cost to Labrador is very much a barrier to health care access. Evans noted Labradorians are being gouged when it comes to airline prices. The average airfare from Nain to Happy Valley Goose Bay is a staggering $1,245, and a trip to St. John's costs close to $2,500. This significant increase in travel costs stunts Labrador's economic growth, quality of health care, and our ability to even access health care. She emphasized a need for action. These prices pose a formidable barrier for families seeking essential health care services that are not readily accessible through government programs. Not everyone has large amounts of cash in their bank account to draw upon if their family is faced with a medical emergency. So what message is the government sending to Labradorians? Our PC caucus has long advocated for policies that would alleviate these burdens on Labradorians. We must prioritize the health of our communities, ensuring that travel costs do not hinder access to essential care that is vital for the well-being of all Labradorians. It's time for our government to take a serious look at how we can support residents in remote areas, ensuring all Labradorians can access travel for medical purposes when needed. Now, moving away from health care, I'd now like to talk a little bit about business and industry and a red tape reduction for a pro-business approach. First, on internal trade and tariffs. The unjustified tariffs and threats of tariffs from the U.S. are a direct threat to Canadian workers and industry, and we will not stand by while our people and our economy are put at risk. Newfoundlanders and Labradorians know what it means to be resilient. We've weathered many storms, and we're ready to stand together again. The threats haven't gone away, and we cannot back down. We are ready to stand up for our workers, for our industries, and for our future. So on that, with the opportunities that we have in front of us across our resource sectors, now is the opportunity to do more to grow and strengthen our natural resources. Sectors that are rich with opportunity, air in Newfoundland and Labrador. That's why we've always supported the doubling of oil and gas development in our province, and for strong federal support for the development and export of LNG. These projects can drive significant real economic growth, reduce our reliance on other nations, and help secure our province's energy and economic security. We must not fall behind in seeking immediate and targeted support for our seafood sector, the backbone of many rural communities. Our world-class seafood products must not be ignored. We have a comparative advantage with our seafood sector. Our PCC party will continue to push for meaningful engagement with all stakeholders to ensure we have a viable, sustainable, and profitable fishing industry for generations to come. At the same time, we must work hand in hand with our business community to explore new markets, diversify our trade relationships, and do everything we can to grow our economy, not just here in Newfoundland and Labrador, but across Canada. HOPE is not a plan of action. We must start taking action. By standing strong here at home, we will send a clear message. We won't be pushed around by any foreign leader, and we won't be left behind. As always, we are committed to Newfoundlander and Labradorians, to protecting our jobs, growing our economy, and securing a better and brighter future for all of us. How the province and country responds to tariffs and the threat of tariffs has the potential to make or break many of our businesses here in Newfoundland and Labrador. So, what do we think we need? First and foremost, we need to cut down on all the needless barriers that businesses face when they are trying to do business. Newfoundland and Labrador should be the easiest place to do business in Canada. Government regulations should not stand in the way when businesses from this province try to expand, sell their products, or bid on projects in other provinces. The fact that rules from province to province cost businesses owners too much time and money. Changing rules is a very real deterrent to expansion and impedes selling products to other provinces. Food that is approved for sale in one province should be approved for sale in all provinces. We have many local beef producers in this province who cannot export their high-quality products to other provinces, nor can they sell to large grocery chains because this province does not have a federally regulated slaughterhouse. But if the red tape was removed and this principle followed, these food producers could expand their markets, grow their businesses, hire more Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, and grow our homegrown beef industry. Professionals who are certified in one province should be certified in all. When workers and businesses from this province go elsewhere to work on projects, they should have to take on any additional safety training because they are already trained. They should not have to apply for another license if they're already licensed. Trucking industry. The trucking industry shouldn't have to deal with different regulations when it comes to weight, restrictions, brakes, tires. These regulations increase the cost of getting province products in and out of our province. And we know that close to 80% of our foodstuff is brought in. And the trucking industry regulations is a significant impact on us. The federal government should also lower the cost of marine Atlantic to make it easier and cheaper to get goods in and out of this province. They need to respect the terms of union. We are geographically isolated from the rest of the country. That's a fact. That's a challenge to doing business. It shouldn't be worsened by high ferry cost. The vast majority of products, goods and services should be able to flow freely from one province to another without additional licensing, fees, taxes, or regulatory requirements. When it comes to government procurement, when taxpayer funds are used, Canadian supplies should be used. And the same is there in Newfoundland and Labrador, with local Newfoundland and Labrador business being selected whenever possible. We should be keeping and growing the amount of money circulating in the Canadian and local economies. It is simply the right thing to do. And on government procurement, I'll highlight a couple things that I think we have opportunities where we can further make headway and improvements. And that is a greater use of our agricultural products and a greater use of our construction material products in the province. The summer tourism season is about to arrive. People from across Canada are now choosing where they will spend their money this summer. I believe it should be our province. We should be advocating for Canadians to come here this summer. We should be supporting local tourism operators and promoting them. We should be helping them overcome challenges they face to prepare for our visitors. We should be advocating for more air routes into the province and not just into St. John's. Now, on business, we need to remove roadblocks. Why? Because local businesses are the heart and soul of our communities. They play a vital role in provincial economic growth. They are truly the engine. The stronger businesses are, the stronger our economy becomes. It's that simple. Reducing the cost of running a business is key to growing a business. And this is where governments can step in. Tariffs or no tariffs, government should make it easier and cheaper to do business, not harder, more regulation, which makes it, in the end, more expensive. We all know the many ways that government decisions and policies can impact a business, from different fees and taxes to long and dragged-out process that we refer to as red tape. We need to be aggressive in a red tape reduction plan and slash unnecessary red tape. The red tape angle must end. And I'll give you, like I said, I've known a couple of businesses in my area that were delayed opening because they were waiting on a permit. There needs to be a sense of urgency in government in supporting small businesses. I also have a motel out in my area where a person wants to invest close to $1 million, and he is waiting on a permit. And looking then with that to hire as much as 20 people. The province leads the country in red tape. Our leader has been clear. He wants to lead the country in red tape reduction. In fact, for 5 years now, our province has been given an F grade, that's a failing grade, by the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. This is a very sad commentary. For the past 5 years, the Liberals have simply failed the business community. Our party will also reform the payroll tax and eventually eliminate the tax on full-time employees. Lowering the payroll tax will reduce the tax burden on local businesses and encourage business owners to prioritize full-time hiring. Encouraging businesses to hire, not penalizing them for adding staff, has to be the way ahead. We will review all taxes and fees with the goal to put money back into the pockets of local businesses. and that in itself will be another economic multiplier. Tax relief should allow businesses to reinvest in their operations, hire more staff, and develop new products. Red tape reduction will make it easier to start and grow a business. We want to cultivate a stronger and more prosperous business community. Government should be helping, not hindering, the business sector. We will use the business navigators to inform where the red tape is, and then we will slash it. We will also expand the Business Navigator program to be available on weekends and evenings when a lot of entrepreneurs are available. Because we know, like I said, business owners don't clock out at 4 p.m. Our PC party will create a pro-business environment and let the world know we are open for both investment and growth. We will do jurisdictional scans. We will learn from the successes and failures of other provinces and other countries. There is no patent on good ideas. Nova Scotia has made significant headway in cutting red tape, and I will also highlight Finland has made significant progress in micro loan programs for small communities. Let's not forget that a government's job is to remove the obstacles to block the path to business growth and sustainability. Here on the PC side, we will work with this business community to eliminate barriers and create a better path to growth and prosperity. Now, I want to highlight what I guess two of the business entities said about the budget. This is Jessica McCormick from the Newfoundland Federation of Labour. When it comes to tariff threats, there was nothing significant in terms of austerity measures, and she felt it lacked a real and bold vision for the economy of the province. And this is from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. More of the same from the provincial government as last year. Essentially what we've been saying, a recycled budget. So, let's look at growing our economy and creating opportunities. We also need to find ways to diversify our economy, not just our markets, but also our internal economy. We value oil and gas, and we understand the important role in our economy. In fact, we view there's opportunity for our LNG, especially since Germany has built 6 LNG offload terminals over the past year and a half. We also need to maximize other opportunities we have before us, like the potential to further expand our tourism sector. This includes our fishery. It must not be forgotten. We need to maximize our fishery. It's not getting the attention it deserves. And I refer to what my colleague from Bonavista said. The fishery could be double what it is currently. With the right government plan. We will help find new opportunities. We will be in our communities and work with the people on the ground to develop strategies to revitalize our rural areas. We must give back to driving growth by developing individual strategies to encourage prosperity in sectors like ocean tech, where we have a comparative advantage, IT, and mining where we have the resources. We need regional economic development strategies, which are crucial for our rural communities. It fosters job creation, strengthens connections, and enhances local services. And, you know, I note in 2018, this Liberal government paid $1 million to McKinsey for economic development strategies, which nothing came of. A region-by-region approach will ensure that each region of this province has a sustainable and prosperous future with a strong economy and with amenities and services readily available. A renewed focus on regional development is essential to ensure a vibrant future for all residents and businesses alike. And I want to highlight, you know, not everything is the same. There is some opportunities here that can be further capitalized upon. And in the last few years, without really government support, we've seen rural manufacturing does work in Newfoundland and Labrador, in what Superior Glove has achieved in both Point Leamington and Springdale. We need to better understand, and government also needs to better understand, what we offer as a comparative advantage. Now, I'd now like to highlight some of our renewable mega projects. I'd like to start with the fishery. It is the most important industry in our province. The 2021 Red Book stated the Liberal Party is best positioned to lead our fishing industry. I question that. Managing the transition to greater ground fish activity, investigating threats and opportunities in the shellfish and seal industries. I think that's the only time I've ever seen it mentioned with regards to seals, and growing a high-quality, high-value industry that all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians can be proud of. This is the third year in a row that the start of the crab fishery was in jeopardy. Last year, the budget had to be delayed because fish harvesters were met with police and riot gear as they tried to meet with the Premier. We, on the PC party side, we will establish a standalone fishery department. We understand the importance of the fishery on which tens of thousands depend. And I will also highlight, you know, with the fishery, the economic impact of it is not just felt in those rural communities. They're spending money in Grand Falls, Gander, Clarenville, Corner Brook, and St. John's. If the fishery hurts, the entire province suffers. And only with a seat at the table nationally can we begin to gain control of our fisheries. So a new PC government will continue to push for shared decision-making in our fishery to ensure our fishery is managed in the best interest of all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. As I noted, our fishery is a renewable resource, and each fish harvester is really a small business. Significant opportunity, as I noted, remains for our fishery and aquaculture activities if government was more proactive. Now, I want to highlight a couple of tax, and that's the total allowable catch and the need to reestablish them. So first is on the mackerel side. Mackerel was a $300 million fishery for Newfoundland and Labrador. Add in the economic multiplier, and you're looking at close to $1 billion impact. Fish harvester Jones provided an incredible and detailed overview of the research to support the TAC for mackerel, and that has fallen on deaf ears, both provincially and federally. The TAC for mackerel is justified and needs to be reestablished. The TAC for 3K crab this year was reduced 25%, and we've seen conflicting science data between the pot survey and the trawl survey. The pot survey supported really a maintenance of the TAC, whereas the trawl survey, bottom trawl survey, was slightly off for various reasons. Some of it because cod was eating the bait. So, you know, I say to the government side, you know, the Minister of Fisheries even noted that fish harvester Gillett from Twillingate made a very strong case with regards to the pot survey and maintaining the current, or what was the current TAC. And that is, we need to listen to the fish harvesters. We have an opportunity now, as soon as the season starts, to look at their pot catches from the first couple of weeks and then petition DFO again to increase that TAC back to where it sits. More importantly, for both mackerel and crab, we need to listen to the fish harvesters and what they are seeing on the water. Every catch that they make is indeed a scientific assessment that should be used. We also must ensure that the inshore fishery remains the primary beneficiary for any northern cod TAC increase. And with that, if there is an increase, we need to look at increasing the processing license and look at areas where it can be done in the communities adjacent to it, like in my own area on the Bayvert Peninsula. We need to look at markets for seals. And two final things I want to highlight with regards to the fishery, and that is we need to understand the fishery frustration now with e-logs. We're adding in a significant change to electronic logs. We probably need a bunch of fishery department personnel to spend a few days at sea to understand the life of a fisherman or a fish harvester. And then they might understand the challenges of them, and for some of them that have not been around technology, to fully embrace that technology. It should be brought in over a period of time, not forced down the throats of our fish harvesters. And then the other point I would make on fishing, and that is on the aquaculture side, we also need to push back on the marine protected areas. We need to be able to continue to grow our aquaculture industry. And at one end, we're saying that, but yet on the other end, we got both levels of government supporting the MPAs, the marine protected areas. Forestry is another renewable mega project. And in my own district on the Green Bay and Bayvert, we have a number of wood operations that support operations to Cornerbrook Pulp and Paper. Also have a number of local sawmills. And those local sawmills now need additional allocation, and with it, they can support our housing crisis, and they can support demand that they have across central Newfoundland to support the mining industry. Government from our forestry operation can then receive fees from timber harvesting, increased fees from company taxes, personal income tax. This is a further economic driver for the province if we were to be smart about helping some of our sawmill operators. Another of our renewable mega projects is agriculture. The 2021 Red Book promised to increase food security, saying they will continue to support the growth of our agricultural sector and meet the goal of increasing provincial food security to 20% by 2022. Yet, where are we? Food prices continue to rise, and healthy food available has continued to be a challenge. And that is worst in northern and remote community. If it's bad in Metro, imagine the sticker stock at grocery stores in Labrador and in other rural locations. People simply cannot afford to eat healthy food. And as I previously noted, the food banks are stretched. When food banks are stretched to the breaking point, and many are going hungry, including thousands of seniors and children, why didn't the government provide a new plan to ensure our food banks, food kitchens, and social supply networks have the resources, just even a little increase in resources, to meet the growing needs of hungry people in this province? Speaker, across Newfoundland and Labrador, farmers want to expand. From root vegetable farming to hydroponics to lettuce to raising cattle, there is a desire to produce more locally. However, across all of that, they continue to be challenged with government roadblocks. I have a case in my own district. Corner Brook Pulp and Paper is holding 2 small firms hostage, wanting a fee for timber rights. Why can't the government give Corner Brook Pulp and Paper, Kruger, another allocation and let those 2 small farms grow? We have the highest rate of food insecurity in Canada, with 1 in 4 residents having difficulty accessing food. So we need to support more farming. And on that, and being able to take care of our own and be smart about our own opportunities for farming, we need to support a federally regulated slaughterhouse. And the MP for Exploits highlighted that a month ago. He called on the Liberal government to take real action to support farmers and strengthen secondary food processing in our province. The vast majority of our food comes from outside, with 20% locally produced. Now more than ever, we must invest in food security here at home, said Forsey. Our local farmers work hard to feed our communities, yet they continue to face honest...
I just remind the member not to use the family names of the members.
Okay, sorry.
Even if you're reading, you need to refer to the district. So thanks. That's the second time. So thank you.
We must invest. We must invest in food security here at home, said the MHA for Exploits. Our local farmers work hard to feed our communities, yet they continue to face unnecessary barriers because of Liberal inaction. One key step the MHA for Exploits highlighted should be to immediately take efforts to facilitate the establishment of a federally regulated slaughterhouse. Without such a facility, local beef producers are restricted in their ability to access national grocery chains, limiting their market opportunities and the availability of locally raising beef for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. Why can't we help ourselves? A federally regulated slaughterhouse would be a game changer for our province's beef industry. It would open doors for local producers. It would create jobs and create food security by keeping more of our food supply within this province. I now like to switch over to tourism and then really just talk about for a couple minutes my district. So scenic Green Bay and the historic Bay Peninsula offer significant untapped tourism potential. It is abundantly clear that history, geography, and a sense of place intertwine daily over a salt reef. However, road safety issues are impacting our tourism potential. Case in point, we must ensure that both residents and tourists can at least see the road signs. You know, there was work promised on Route 391 and 392 11 months ago. Unfortunately, it was not in the plan. So I'm open that the minister has a separate plan for what was promised 11 months ago. We also have Route 413 and 419, and they need investment. These are potentially game changers for the tourism opportunities in those communities, because what has been written and what has been shown to me is that these are great communities to visit, and what people are putting up on Facebook, great communities to visit, but don't go there because you're going to damage your vehicle. We need a plan. We need a multi-year plan to be able to fix our secondary roads. Now I'm going to talk about an opportunity, a non-renewable resource, where there is an opportunity for significant economic development for our province. The Red Book promised to invest in expansion of secondary processing for mining, strengthening jobs, businesses, and communities, particularly in rural regions. It stated we will develop high potential opportunities for extraction and secondary processing and review our regulatory regime to ensure timely and responsible development. Timely development. I think you need to go back and ask Valentine Lake and the owners there what they think about the meaning of the word timely. Secondary processing. Although this province abounds in minerals and mineral production, opportunities for value-added processing are being lost. The federal government has made huge investments in battery manufacturing operations elsewhere in Canada. But where are the secondary processing investments in this province? A province where the mineral wealth and the investments are great. I'll give you an overview now, not just my district, but the entirety of central Newfoundland with regards to mining. And the area continues to be a notable focal point of activity. And that legacy goes back 150 years, which is now being further advanced through the efforts of Firefly, Mings Bight area, and Maritime Resources with the Ammerdown project, with other names about to emerge. We should be, now with this opportunity in front of us, on the cusp of a major mining boom with better government planning. Now, where are the opportunities? So we have Newfound Gold in Appletown, the purest gold find in North America. We have Valentine Lake, which was just recently acquired by Equinox Gold, and that they're open to get into production within the next few months, a 500-person mine with significant economic multiplier across central Newfoundland. We have the Beaverbrook Antimony mine, just the other side of Glenwood. We have on the Kings Point Road, Maritime Resources in Ammerdown, a gold mine. The mine is there, it's permitting. We need to be able to push that along. And then we have Firefly, what was Rambler, at the intersection of Mings Bight and the Lassie Highway. And they are going into economic review within the province within the next couple of months. And that needs to be expedited. That needs to be expedited because there's an opportunity now with the base metals for copper to take advantage of that. And then if we push this along, we are on our path to a 400-person mine. Now, all of this is interconnected. With all of the mining opportunities that I've noted, probably close to 2,000 direct mining jobs. On top of that, you have significant indirect jobs for drilling and the like. catering. So first of all, we need a plan. We need a plan for labour. We don't have the labour to meet the entire mining need in this province. On top of that, where are they going to live? We need a plan for housing to be able to meet all of that. We also need to continue to push for the complete elimination of the carbon tax, because our miners will not be as productive as others across North America if we're facing a carbon tax regime. And in a number of areas, we need road improvements to be able to support ore trucks traveling along those paths. And I highlight routes 390, 410, and 418 that need specific investments. In fact, Route 390, I was on it 4 days ago, 85 potholes from Kings Point to Springdale. And the minister asked for the #1 priority in January. That was the #1 priority that I submitted, and I believe, and it was not in the initial plan. Shameful. The Liberals' track record on financial responsibility. People at home should be asking, are the Liberals being responsible with my taxpayer dollars? There is only one answer to that. No. Here's why. The Fraser Institute ranks Newfoundland and Labrador Liberals last in the country on fiscal performance. The Fraser Institute ranked the Newfoundland government last based on 3 factors: government spending, taxes, debt, and deficits. They used a quantitative process. Newfoundland and Labrador, under this Liberal government, ranked last overall, last in taxes, and second last in deficits and debt. These aren't my stats. These are from the nationally renowned Fraser Institute. I'm now going to highlight, and I think it's important to do, especially to remind the residents of Newfoundland and Labrador how full that gill net is with past examples of fiscal waste. And there are many. They are indeed many. The Liberals often wring their hands, saying they wish they had more money to do more for people. This is hard to believe, because during the past 10 years in office, they have been spending approximately $10 billion a year, so $100 billion if times 10, multiply that by 10, so they've spent close to $100 billion. And it was their job to spend that money wisely, but instead they have misspent and wasted huge sums of money through poor management and truly questionable choices. Let's look at the travel nurse contract, a sole source contract, totaling some $100 million a year, most of all of which could have been saved if they had done what was needed to retain the health care professionals that we already have, or hired nurses coming out of Memorial with a full-time job. This crisis of lost doctors and nurses and other professionals happened on the Liberal watch. You only have to let it happen, but you also caused it to happen. And then you have to spend a fortune to close the huge gaps as your failed policies have created. This is simply not the way that our health care system needs to be run. Another example of financial mismanagement is the way health care infrastructure projects have been mishandled. For all the funding allocated, the Western Memorial Health Care System was underbuilt compared to the need. That spurred the minister to propose doubling up seniors in rooms right at the opening of that building. This happened even though it was long known that the province's population was rapidly aging. We need and still need more spaces for seniors' care, not less. We also learned the new mental health and addictions care facility was underbuilt with fewer beds than the Waterford that it replaced. This is despite the obvious urgent need for mental health care and addictions treatment. Why was it underbuilt? Liberals gave a $21 million contract, plus operating costs, to their friends to lease a hotel for 3 years to treat people with complex needs. But they also left that facility vacant for quite a period of time. Finally, the traditional housing agreement signed to lease the Airport Comfort Inn for almost 6 times the property's value. The City of St. John's property attachment shows that the property in question is valued at $3.7 million. The Liberals entered into a sole source exclusive for $7 million a year. $21 million in total to provide up to 140 transitional housing beds. In January last year, that facility was 80% empty. In the first 3 months, $4 million was spent on temporary housing, with a hotel owned by a Liberal friend that housed only 11 people at that time. Related to addictions care, of course, is the lack of a new penitentiary. The 2021 Red Book promised a new penitentiary would be completed by 2025. Instead, it hasn't even started. That's despite the fact that some $150 million in federal funding was earmarked and available to get the work going. Even the Minister of Justice seemed to not know that this funding was there. So instead of getting criminals off the streets and into addictions care, since most inmates have mental or addictions issues, we see the revolving door that places offenders right back on the streets without any treatment, jeopardizing everyone's safety. Then we have the new infrastructure announcements, such as the replacement for St. Clair's. The government commissioned an objective study to determine the best design and placement for such an hospital. But before the results were in, it jumped the gun, repurchasing the land it had just sold with a huge premium to the beneficiaries of that deal. This is no way to properly manage the limited financial resources of the people of the province. It is taxpayers' money, scrapping due diligence and making billion-dollar plans on the back of an envelope to benefit political friends. Then we have the one that really blows my mind, is the Liberals gave $171K to a bottom-tier UK soccer team to promote immigration. But the move resulted in 0 immigrants and less than 5% of the website attention the minister falsely claimed it generated. Access to information, ATIP, revealed none of the 900 residents of the UK who contacted the Department of Immigration, Population Growth and Skills have moved to our province. The Liberals allowed Oil Coal Crown Corporation over the past decade to waste exorbitant funds, disobeying spending authorities. It was completely out of control. Then there is the $5 million Rothschild report. The province commissioned to explore the possibility of publicly selling owned assets like offshore equity stakes, Marble Mountain, the Liquor Corporation, and so forth. Nothing has materialized for that $5 million bill. And we have no idea what the report recommended. So the question is, Speaker, why are we not aware of the recommendations? There's one reason, and one reason only. Because the government has hidden the findings from public view. They didn't even have the good sense to put the document in the hands of an independent third party, such as the Auditor General, to ensure that another set of eyes on the recommendations for the benefits or potential benefits of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians could be reviewed. What is to prevent another fire sale of valuable assets to friends of the Liberal Party in power, the way that they have benefited their friends with their hotel deal, land deals, and a recent land purchase? Who is going to look out for the best interests of taxpayers when this government is instead continuing to look out for the best interests of their political friends? I could go on. The gillnet is full. And, you know, listen, if you've ever... Okay, let me talk about... It is. Okay, that fish is up. And I've been at... let me just give you the metaphor of being at sea, hauling up a earring net for someone that had passed. So the net had been in the water for a few days. When that net was all up, it was full, but it reeked. It reeked. This is where we are now with the Liberals and their continuing economic expenditures. It reeks of a lack of accountability. It reeks of poor decision-making. It simply just reeks to every Newfoundlander and Labradorian. I could go on. But my point is that the Liberals clearly have not been good fiscal managers. They have been given falling grades. They have continued to ignore the Auditor General. And they have simply wasted too much taxpayer money. Clearly, it's time for change. As I wrap up my remarks for today, Speaker, I've said it before, but I believe it bears repeating. The people of Newfoundland and Labrador deserve more from this budget. The people of Newfoundland and Labrador simply deserve better. And as I said earlier, you know, when I talked about the funding of the offices in Grand Falls, Windsor, by helping some of our food, by helping some of our food hampers, budgets are about choices. It is not Liberal money, it is taxpayer money. Every dollar that is used is an opportunity cost. Every dollar. And they should be about making smart choices, particularly in a period of crisis that we are in globally. The Liberal government had a chance to make smart choices. Choices that would make life better for all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians and help diversify our province. They have failed. And in fact, the budget from yesterday missed the mark on all of it. The budget is a recycled document filled with re-announcements from a tired Liberal government that has clearly run out of ideas. A government that continues to have no plan to address the issues facing our province. Very little has changed with yesterday's budget, Speaker. The people across all of Newfoundland and Labrador now need real leadership. Leadership that will make better choices to make life more affordable, improve access to health care, diversify our economy, and create safer communities across the entire province. Our party is ready, clearly ready, and able to provide that leadership. On that note, I will now take my seat, and I look forward to speaking on this budget again and to further participate in this important debate because it impacts the future of our province. Thank you.
The Honourable the Member for Grand Falls, Windsor-Buckins.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And obviously, that is going to be one hard act to follow. Spoken on behalf of my colleague. Absolutely fantastic words. He speaks the truth. But I'll say to my colleague from Bayvert Green Bay, who just gave an amazing response to the budget, don't get too comfortable in that seat, sir, because I look forward to you delivering the 26-27 budget on that side of the floor. So don't you get too comfortable, sir. Don't you get too comfortable at all. Speaker, I'd like to take a minute and just tell a little story here, a little personal story that I have from 2014. Back in 2014, my grandmother Budgel, who lives on Caribou Road, came down. She got ill. She developed a very aggressive cancer, and unfortunately, she died that year. But my mother and my aunts took care of her in her house, in her home, because there was nowhere to put her at that time. There was no places in the hospital, as people were dying in the hallways of hospitals surrounded by strangers and hustle and bustle all day long. So they kept her at home. One evening, she stopped breathing while my mother and my two aunts were there. They called the ambulance. The ambulance came. It was expected, but of course, it's my mother's mom, so it came as a great tragedy. The paramedics took her off the bed and put her on the floor in a cluttered room with so many things around, in a dark, cold, cluttered room. And one of the paramedics asked my mom, would you like us to bring her, to try to save her, to do CPR on this mid-70-year-old woman and try to save her? That was their job. That's what they had to ask her. My mom panicked and said, please, yes, just bring my mom back however you can. They did CPR on her for her, I'm not sure how long, but I can only imagine how tragic it was for my grandmother, as it was her last moments. They brought her to the hospital, they pronounced her, and my mother today, 10 years later, 11 years later, still lives with the grief and the guilt that she possibly made my poor grandmother's last few moments, unselfishly of course, some of the worst moments of her life. That happened because my mother did not have the proper education, the proper know-how to know what should happen in those last moments. So, what did we do in Grand Falls, Windsor? We developed the first community hospice in Newfoundland and Labrador. And when I say we, it's a community, it's a province, it's as far from government as it should be. It's a community that fundraised for a decade to help bring the Lionel Kellen Hospice where it is today. And in February, we welcomed our 100th resident to the hospice, and last week we celebrated 1 year for a community hospice here in Newfoundland. We were the last province in all of Canada to have a community hospice. But thanks to the likes of Ken Dix, John Campbell, Dr. Cole, and a full community, we have it. We're very proud of it. The hospice doesn't work as an infrastructure. It works because of the people that put everything into it every single day, and I'm so happy to have them there. In the Lionel Kellen Hospice, if anybody has never ever taken a little tour of it, I encourage anybody in government to do so. It is a state-of-the-art facility. It's got a state-of-the-art chapel. It's absolutely fantastic. So, years ago, up until the hospice was ready, people were dying in hallways of hospitals, literally, while people were passing them with meals and everything else and trying to talk to them, and they were dying in hallways. And that's sad, and we should be ashamed of that. Today in Lionel Kellen Hospice, these rooms are state-of-the-art. They're cuddle beds, so you can lay next to your loved one. You can bring your animals in there if you wish. You can play whatever music you wish. It's a private, intimate setting where somebody can truly die with the dignity that they should have. And we're very proud of it. There's a full kitchen there, so if your loved one wants their last few meals to be special, they absolutely can. And we've had some special times at the Lionel Kellen Hospice. They've taken one gentleman. He wanted to have his last boil up. So what'd they do? They brought in a side-by-side. They strapped that gentleman in, went across the river, into the woods, lit a fire, and they had a boil up a week before he passed. We've had weddings there. We've had big screen movies there where people can bring their families in and just really, truly enjoy their last moments. And we're all going to be there one day. So the Lionel Kellen Hospice, we're very lucky to have it in Newfoundland and Labrador. And I am so proud of my community that brought it together, and it's fantastic. This year's budget, I think, from what I read correctly, was announced for $2.3 million for the Lionel Kellen Hospice. It's not enough. It's not enough to keep the doors open in that place. Government knows this. The Department of Health knows this. But unfortunately, that number remained the same from last year, or whereabouts. Lionel Kellen Hospice needs just south of $3 million. They've sat down with a comprehensive plan. That's what they need. Now, I was happy when my leader from Stephenville Port au Port came in and said, basically, give me a check, how do I sign it one day? He said, when what this place needs, after he toured it, and he's seen how important it was to our community, that was his message. Whatever you need when our government is in place, you will have to continue the success of Lionel Kellen Hospice. And I thank you. Was that? Yep. First and foremost, exactly. And I'm so thankful for that. I'm so happy for that. So I know that the Lionel Kellen Hospice will be safe one day. I'm just not sure about now with the same funding we had last year. That didn't get us through this year. We had to get some bridge funding. So I asked the government. The government knew this. They knew that months at the last fiscal part of this year had to be bridged. Yet we got the same funding. Why? Why? My colleague from Bayvert, Green Bay, talked about decisions. Decisions, of course. My office is in the provincial building in Grand Falls, Windsor. Right below the Premier's office. Right below. I'm on the second floor, they're on the third floor, right above me. Premier's office is mostly empty than not. Most times, there's nobody there. You can see a big sign when you go into my building, by appointment only. By appointment only. So if we're going to spend $1 million for 4 years on this, could some of that money have gone back into the Lionel Kellen Hospice? If there's no money, obviously it wasn't there for this year's budget, can we close that ridiculous office and put the money back into the taxpayers' pockets where it belongs? Lionel Kellen Hospice. That's going to serve many more people and families than the Premier's office that's there today. So we talk about decisions. And different decisions can be made. Of course they can be made. I know what decisions we're going to make after this election, And I can guarantee you it's going to be a much smarter decision than that. That's going to help the people of my district and of all Newfoundland and Labrador. So I couldn't be more than happy about that. Just stick with healthcare for a moment. The emergency room in Grand Falls, Windsor, constantly overrun. We've talked about it many, many times. And I'm going to point somebody out here, and he's going to kill me for doing Dr. John Campbell. Dr. John Campbell is the emergency room doctor out there. He also runs a hospice. I don't know if the man sleeps. I honestly don't know if the man sleeps. He is so back and forth, it's not even funny. How we're not pushing more into the Lionel County Hospice, I don't know. And I will say this. We have a problem attracting healthcare professionals, obviously. The Lionel County Hospice will help us with that. I didn't realize how many healthcare professionals truly want to work in that environment. I was amazed. I was amazed. And like I say, Dr. Campbell's a friend of mine. After working in a week of the ER and working in the week of the Lionel County Hospice, it's like night and day. It's like night and day. This is serenity for him over here, to be with people as they pass and to offer those services. And I'm just so proud of the friends I have and the hospice that we have in there. You know, we get the diversion still from all over Central into the Grand Falls Windsor Hospital, and that emergency room, my God, it's overrun. It's a sin. It's a sin. And you think about why we can't retain or recruit people here. It's kind of a catch-22. As people leave, it puts more pressure on the people that are there that are actually holding up this impossible infrastructure. But they managed to do it. And I want to tell everybody in Grand Falls, Windsor, surrounding areas, wherever you come to work into the healthcare system in Grand Falls, Windsor, as your MHA, I am so proud of you. I couldn't be more proud of the work you're doing, holding it all together. And God bless you all. We're talking about the budget, of course, and I'm going to take a quick moment and talk about road work. So we got some road work that needs to be done up the Buckens Highway, Route 370 and into Millertown, and it was on the list this year, and I've been asking for it for 6 years, and it's finally on the list this year, so I'm very, very happy about that. What I don't see on the list this year is a plan to address the wrong-way traffic on the divided highway in Grand Falls, Windsor, that happens every other weekend. It happened again last weekend. I believe when we were here 3 weeks ago, it happened that weekend as well. I have the video. It's absolutely unreal. Somebody is going east in the eastbound lane, as they should, and a blue car whips right by them in the lane next to them. Now, can you imagine how scary that would be? And that's a 90-kilometer-hour zone. I've offered many suggestions to government. Nothing yet. 6 years. Not one thing. Not one thing. Do you know what's going to happen after, well, 4 years ago was the tragedy, but we had it happening before that? Do you know what would happen today after all this attention, after the phone calls, the emails, the conversations I've had, the tears I've shed, because I know about the last fatality? What would happen today if somebody was killed and we knew what was happening out there and we could prevent it? And we could prevent it. That's raw, but it's real. I don't know, even after the advocation I could do, if I could live with myself after that. It would be sad. But we have a full department that has known about this for 4 years, and nothing's been done. There's no excuse for that. That's just lack of attention. Until what? Until another resident dies? It's sad. It shouldn't be that way. In Grand Falls, Windsor, we've had the fortune of having so much timber within our area. I mean, we had the mill there for it's the better part of a century. We've had people there that's, it's instilled into their blood. We've had third and fourth generation woodcutters out there. And unfortunately, the allotment continues to go to the big players, the 2 or 3 humongous players out there. Now, I'm not coming down on those players. I want to see all Newfoundland and Labrador businesses be successful, big or not. I want to see them all. But I'll say this, for the amount of harvesters that we have out there, small harvesters, there's no reason why they should not get an allotment. We have Jonathan Brown. He's an Indigenous 3rd-generation woodcutter. Doing this since he's been a little boy with his dad. And this coming August, he will be out of wood, he'll be out of permits. He employs about 8 or 10 people, not a lot, a third generation. He's going to be out of work and have to close his business. Another business closing in Newfoundland, Labrador. Why? Why? Because we can't take the allotment and little pieces of that pie to ensure that these people remain sustainable as well. It's not fair. It's not fair. And I got to give it up to our leader once again, who talked to Jonathan Brown and assured him that when he gets in there, he will ensure that the process is done where everybody can get just a little bit, maybe. Just a little bit. I know the allotment is there, but we need to take a look at it as a bigger picture. And we need to hold on to these small businesses. Because it might be not a lot in the big picture, but it is a lot in Central. And that's part of our heritage and our culture as well. And again, I applaud the bigger companies for the hard work that they've done over the years. There's some big companies here, and I applaud them. And I'm totally open to free enterprise. But we need to find a way to ensure that these smaller companies stay sustainable as well. And until we do that, we're going to see them moving on, and it's just not fair. I'm going to take a quick moment and talk about tourism in Central for just a moment. Coming up on the summer season here, and there's no better place, in my opinion, than Newfoundland, Labrador when it comes to tourism. We get people from all over the world. It's absolutely amazing to see. In Grand Falls, Windsor, just between Grand Falls, Windsor and Badger, we have Rafting Newfoundland. That's whitewater rafting right here in Newfoundland, Labrador. Locally owned. They hire locals. It's absolutely fantastic to see. You go out and see 7 or 8 boats going down, and everybody got their paddles in the air, and by God, it's something to see. People absolutely love it. And I've done it quite a few times with my family. I encourage anybody out there, come on into Central, and you look up Rafting Newfoundland, and you'll have the time of your life, I guarantee you. Exploits Extreme Zipline. That's another one that just opened up last year or the year before. Again, locally owned. The guy out there, Chad Porter, fantastic guy. Hires on a bunch of students, fantastic. I did it for the first time last summer. And I tell you what, when you're whipping across the mighty Exploits River and you get to look down and see some salmon fishing and maybe the rafting people go beneath you, it's some sight to see. It is absolutely fantastic, and it's something that we're very proud of out there. It's something very proud of out there. The Grand Falls Windsor Heritage Centre. If you want to see some pictures, if you want to see some artifacts, some things that came from Grand Falls, Windsor, and our extraordinary history over the past century, you're heading out to Grand Falls, Windsor Heritage Centre, and I tell you what, there's some people out there that can give you a great tour and let you know, along with the Grand Falls House as well, that we're very proud of our town. We've had some hard-working people come from our town. It's gone through transitions over the past century. A lot of people thought, once the mill closed, I was going to be it for Grand Falls, Windsor. You don't know people from Grand Falls, Windsor very well, I can tell you that, because they are resilient and they're strong, and they will always find a way, like they did today. And I'm so happy to have them there, and so happy to represent that place out there. Accommodations, restaurants, it's all out there as well. And if you've never been to Buckins, Millertown, Buckins Junction, Red Indian Lake, I tell you what a spot. It is absolutely fantastic. They have an Indian Point up there where the Beothics have their teepees. They have a little settlement there. They excavated almost 20,000 artifacts from that place. 20,000 artifacts. It's phenomenal. Unfortunately, it keeps washing away. Indian Point slowly each year is washing away. Millertown applied for some ditching up there, $15,000 worth of ditching. Nope, sorry, not going to happen. I think the government spent more on consultations trying to rename the lake than they did to actually save Indian Point, and that's absolutely disgraceful. And we're very, it's shameful. It's absolutely terrible. I'm going to take the last 2 minutes here and just talk about a very close friend of mine who is in the fight of his life right now. We have a very special family in Grand Falls, Windsor. Sean and Jackie Feener. They own the Classic Theatre in Grand Falls, Windsor. Sean served on council for a bit. Chris is a musician. Mark's worked for the government. That's their 2 sons. Just a phenomenal family, and I'm so fortunate to have known them. And Sean's in a hospital right now, and he's literally in the fight of his life. I was down to visit him today, and like I say, just a phenomenal family. I just want to say to Jackie, and Chris and Mark that you've got a full community behind you. You've got a full community behind you. And I will do everything in my power to pray and hope that Sean Feener comes home again. That's what we need to see. So I just want to thank Jackie for allowing me to come down to see Sean today. I just wish him a very, very speedy recovery because, like I say, that's a family that's given so much to their community. I want them to know that their community is there for them. And I just want to say I love you, Sean, and get your butt home. Thank you, Speaker.
The Honourable the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Speaker. I move, seconded by the member for St. Barb Lanson Meadows, that this House do now stand adjourned. And I'll remind folks that estimates start at 5:30 here in the chamber.
Is it pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? All those in favour? All those against? Motion carried. This at 1:30 p.m. and as tonight for estimates, transportation infrastructure and public procurement starting at 6 p.m. here in the chamber. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. tourism, culture, arts and recreation and the resources committee, and 1 p.m. social service committee with education.